This is going to be another episode of Snake and Banter, but before we get into it, I actually have to make an announcement, and this is a surprise to me as much as it is to you guys. Just follow me for a second. It's going to sound weird, but when I was a boy, certain words had different meanings, and they've evolved over time as cultures change. So, for example, when I was a boy, I thought being gay meant you were attracted physically or emotionally, romantically, to people of the same sex as you. But what I've actually learned, and I didn't know this the whole time, I've been with women my whole life, is actually just having this makes me gay. I didn't know. Listen, an expert on the topic recently, on another show of ours, Hot Take Point Made, actually just informed me of it the other day. I can't believe it. I don't even know how I'm going to tell my dad.
What is funny about this is I really wanted to wear something.
I know you did.
This episode, and I genuinely don't. So I can actually be besties with Kasad this whole time. We can be besties.
Because that's the thing, Hawka. I was going to ask you also. I know you're just trolling him. You don't even have a pink mouse. I just know you don't even. You're just trolling him, weren't you?
Of course. I didn't realize he keeps tweeting about it though. He really.
Listen. I don't know why I have to now be the one to explain this because all of my associates in the industry have done this for me, but. Certain people, sometimes people's Twitter is different from who they are outside of Twitter, and whatever. You all get it. Listen, we wouldn't do that show if we didn't love that part of Kasad. There's an element. You have to realise the same part that never shuts the fuck up about Falcons is the same part going on about those topics and telling like.
Like your uncle at Christmas who says some random stuff.
Well, here's the thing I've noticed. In general, his process goes like this. It's essentially the infinite double down. So the problem is, because we made a hot take show where we encourage him to go really extreme, once he's gone past that watermark, he never pulls back, does he? So he'll start at instead of being like, I'm annoyed with the Face It experience, I think they should improve it in these many ways. He'll just be like, fuck Face It, fuck everyone at Face It, and it should be deleted, and it's actually morally wrong that it exists. Like, well, you can't really go. Bring this up. That's kind of the ultimate. Go on.
Like he on Hot Take Point Made, he made a claim, or he basically he used it as an advertisement that is all of the people that are experiencing blatant cheaters on Face It get into my DMs. What happened? Where they at?
All right, okay.
Where are they? Okay. Where are all these blatant cheaters that were ruining your matchmaking games? No, I honestly, Kasad just lets his shower thoughts of toxic masculinity hit the timeline. It's like there's no filter between having a moment of machismo and just typing into twitter.com. So,
listen, you guys have to understand, that's not really who he is. It's like an Andy Kaufman-esque character that he plays. And the whole thing is its commitment to the bit. If you ever show that any weakness or that's not real, it sort of ruins it, doesn't it? So let's just all enjoy this wonderful social experiment of how much longer we can keep doing the shows. Anyway, speaking of doing the shows, let's do this show. So Hawka, first things first, actually, is, well, I actually have a genuine question. It's probably the sort of question I should just ask in a DM, but I'll ask it here anyway, whatever, we're all friends, is where is Hawka at in the industry at the moment? Because one thing I've noticed you've been doing, mate, that I actually think is banging, is a type of content really I've always meant to do myself, but I'm just too lazy, is you basically do the type of content that if people know in football media is super popular, which is you actually do really quick reaction content to things that happen in the tournament. So as you don't wait till the tournament's over and they go, hey, let's go back to this thing. If like a big match happens or a massive thing happens in the scene, I notice you do it almost like the same day. You just put the video out almost immediately, right?
Yeah, I started doing this recently. I think for some reason I always thought on my main channel I wanted to do edited videos.
Yeah.
So I made a new channel for this just because it feels like low effort. But it came from football, like you said.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a somewhat casual fan, you're not catching every game. It's kind of nice to have
absolutely.
a sort of recap of roughly what happened and cool moments. So yeah, it's been going pretty well, which is nice. Yeah.
No, I think you're killing it, mate. Like I say, I actually do think it showed there was a hole for that in the industry because instead everyone does, like you said, the edited content or they wait afterwards and do all the shows and stuff. But I like the fact you do it in the moment. Like if someone basically didn't watch 4 hours after the game, they'd get the sense of the storyline. Okay.
Yeah. Well, another question I have for Hawka here is that kind of just using this platform just to, I guess, what are you trying to look for right now in the industry? Because I feel like maybe people don't know.
I mean, put it this way, originally it was commentator. So are you still trying to be a colour commentator if possible? Is that the ideal goal?
I mean, I'd be happy to, but I feel like I've looked for like more analyst work recently, just because the commentary stuff seems like so stacked and locked down.
Yeah,
like even like Anders is struggling to find gigs.
Well,
so
we've
like,
got a new
okay,
three
well,
duels. That's the problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but then also it seems like the analyst desk has kind of been a little cut back in certain spots. So yeah, I'm basically open to anything. I think analyst desk I'd really like to do, because I feel like in the past I've always thought when I'm a commentator I don't want to give super strong takes, because you kind of don't want a guy who's commentating the game to be someone who like hates your team. That's going to feel weird.
No, I agree.
I think I'd be willing to like throw some spice out there on the desk if I was picked up. So there you go.
You know, by the way, when I always tell people that thing of like, I prefer to be on the desk because, you know, you have like bite-sized segments and you can do a skit and you can do a funny bag. That what you're saying there is actually an underrated reason I don't even give Hawka. I also literally couldn't be my personality if I was a colour commentator. Like, I couldn't just be commentating like, and there we go, Fallen hits the 3K, of course, very overrated player, not as good as Guardian. But that wouldn't work, mate. Like, everyone would tune out, you'd be hated. Like, that would get old for even me, like 10 minutes in, mate. In fact, I actually did, one of the things that actually did convince me to be an analyst, by the way, is way back in the day when essentially, you know, back in the day when essentially the analyst desk was me and Richard Lewis, and sometimes he was even the host, and it would just be casters. Whichever caster wasn't working the game, like Anders, Semler would come on the desk. Well, vice versa. Sometimes, say like Anders wanted a game off and it was a group stage, like Semler or someone like that would ask me to do a game. And I did a game 11 years ago at a DreamHack, and it was actually like a quarter final or something. It was like Navi when they weren't very good against someone else. I think it was like French team like Epsilon or something. And the problem is, Hawka, this was like one of the worst games I've ever seen. Like in this game, basically, everyone fucked up. Like all the like T-side executes, all the clutches were like the wrong person wins them. And so because I was just analysing it like legit like that, like this is really badly played. I know this guy won that, but he really shouldn't have. Like the other guy just missed, you know. And because I did this, like mate, I've never seen as bad a response to commentary ever as this cast. Because like every person, essentially, if you're a fan of either team, you hated it. Like you just saying we're all shit. And it's like, yeah, but in that one case, they all weren't. So what I learned there was, even if the game's shit, actually part of the talent of being a caster is making it not seem shit, if you know what I mean. People think you just say what you say. You don't. There's a craft and an art to this. And also, as I learned in that moment, I don't have the temperament for that, mate. Anders really can just go, let's see what's going to happen in this next round. Is this IGL who Thorin thinks is worthless? Try something with players that don't even... Like, he would have made it KD and Australia sound good. You know what I mean? I would have just the whole time been like, why don't they shut this project down and sell the team? Like, that would be my commentary style. So, whatever. Anyway, now we're in a format where it is appropriate for me to have big opinions. We're on a talk show, boys. So, Hawka, you know the rules. Even though I will say, I am actually mildly ashamed that I thought you were in the rotation. You haven't been on this show for like 3 years. It's because what I realised is you've been on all the other shows.
No way.
It's years ago, or maybe a year or something. It was a while though. Wasn't it a while ago you did it?
I honestly don't even remember. I thought I did it like last year or something.
It could be, but in my brain,
I would have assumed a year.
I thought you were more updated, but I think it's because I took you for Feed the Trolls or some other show I booked, and so in my brain I did book you, but just not for this show. The joke is, I've said this before, but I'm not even trolling. I've done so many episodes now, and I use the same people, that here's how I do it, Hawker. I myself search on the YouTube playlist, like, Feed the Trolls to Hawker, and then I see, oh yeah, I did do one with him. So like, this is mad, and there's some ones where it's like, I do see like, I did one 3 months ago, and that person's like, well, delete that, put that to the side. Okay, so anyway, what is your good point, Hawker? What's good at the moment?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty standard point, but it's going into the major. It's just the competitiveness going into the major is just great. I think for a few reasons. Firstly, Vitality are playing kind of badly, and they're still making like semifinals and finals of events, which I think is still great. Especially partly because having them still play so well after the first season, I think makes sure that people don't just assume everyone else is like bad. Like because Vitality is still good, everyone's going to be like, okay, so you know, it's not like the scene just sucks now or anything. It's like Vitality is still good, and there's other teams up there. FURIA are obviously just a complete revelation. Such a fun style. They've come out of nowhere. I think Falcons, they look good. You know, if NiKo showed up recently, they would absolutely win. They could win. Maus are Maus. Okay, they're probably going to choke in the playoffs. All right, we all know it. But they actually played like pretty close versus Vitality at Chengdu. Like they've had some decent performances. Spirit again, like they could pull it together. It's not impossible. They have the players to do it. G2 are a massive dark horse just with their firepower. Like there's so many teams that you can make arguments for, and that's before getting into like FaZe, who maybe could come through, Liquid, who could come through. There are even some good upset teams. The only team that I guess you're missing is obviously the Mongols, but you can't have it all. And so I think it means we get a really fun era of firstly, matchups might matter now during the playoffs, because I think in the past, you couldn't really talk about matchups when it just feels like if you've got a good matchup against someone, it doesn't matter because you're just going to lose to Vitality in the final anyway. No one really cares as much. Whereas now, you can actually talk about specific matchups. It's actually important. And then also, just in general, people do get exhausted when Vitality just keep winning over and over again. But I would also really like, if Vitality could win this major, I think it would be so nice to cap off the year, because instead of them just dominating everything, it would give them a bit more of a storyline, and we could say, yeah, this is fully Vitality's year. They even bounced back when the scene like leveled up to try and beat them. So there's just so many fun storylines from it, and I think it's probably the best spot Counter-Strike's been in quite a while, just for competitiveness and how many good teams there are.
I would say that parity is definitely in effect right now. I find, though, that I wouldn't extend it as far as you did in that explanation. I don't really see Maus to be serious contenders. I don't really see some of the underdog teams. Like, I actually don't even really see Spirit to truly be a contender. I know that with Donk on your team, you kind of have a shot to win any map. But even in a 3-map series, I just don't even see the potential of them beating out Vitality or FURIA almost ever. I mean, I know it was pretty close at Rivals technically for them to actually get the victory over Vitality, but I just think also, given that now it's a BO5 for the grand finals, I really feel like the only teams that have a serious shot at a BO5 are FURIA, Vitality, Falcons, and Maus, if they really like put a lot of things together. But I just never get to see that. So I think those three are really the teams that I find to be the most likely to win the major, but I already think that's good. I don't think it even needs to be extended to all the other teams or anything like that. Like, yeah, like we got some exciting teams for the playoffs in addition to them. G2 being one. It's great that a lot of these teams have won trophies this season already. The fact that G2 has, the fact that even Navi has, technically, it was a smaller tournament, but the fact that Spirit, G2, Navi all winning tournaments this season kind of makes you believe that something could happen. But I think that right now there's a big 3 entering the major, and I'm just happy about that. Because if it was just kind of a Vitality dominated scene and Falcons are not putting things together whatsoever, and FURIA is not the team that we know them to be today, it's exciting because we can see perhaps an era continue for Vitality. But for me now, it's just which of these 3 teams is going to get it together. Obviously, Falcons is the question mark, and I bet you there's going to be some fans that say some stuff like, well, they've never won already, so how could you even put them in the mix? They're like a couple rounds away from winning multiple trophies already. So to me, that's close enough, even with the choking problems that we've seen.
Yeah, here's the thing. I actually, as usual, I will be the one in the middle. I actually sort of agree with Hawka. If you want to make like a really big picture, zoom out as much as possible. I actually do think this is the best CS has been since, I think you'd have to go back, maybe like 2022 or something. Even then, people complained at the end of that year. I think maybe even before the pandemic, maybe I have to say before COVID. I think that's when people thought there was like a good stratification. Because I agree, I do think actually there are the most good teams I have seen in many years. Like, if you want to break it down in like sections like that, like if you want to go who can win the major, well, even if you want to make FURIA and Vitality the favourites, as Maui pointed out, like, people will say Falcons can't win because they haven't won yet. Yeah, but every other sign they have shows they're like right knocking on the door. Like, the joke is, if you haven't noticed, anyone who's a true Falcons hater, you're really behind the meta. Because if anything, actually every analyst and expert I know has basically taken where Maus used to be. Like, they're the ones that are supposed to break through and win. And everyone's gone, actually, it's Falcons that's in that spot. If anything, Maus is just on the way down and they're just going to become an also-ran or like a top 8 team. So if you add them in, obviously in theory, there's a world where Spirit could trip over and wake up and just have a random tournament where Donk goes fucking crazy and De Niro plays well. So you look at the teams that can win, but then if you even just look at teams that have won tournaments, G2, yeah, it looks now like a one-off, but it still happened. Like, they beat real teams if you go back and look who they beat. Aurora, you have to throw them in the mix. Like, I know they don't often, but they've shown they have the capability to beat everyone. And then I think actually the cool thing is, then you can mention Maus is still in the mix. Here's the key thing. It's not that they have to win, but they can knock out some of those teams I just mentioned that might be able to win. And then I'll even throw out there, if you wanted to see how far, I'm just taking, by the way, if you notice, like recent results at tournaments is my metric here. Well, let's just throw in, if you want some like dark horses, not not to win, but again, to like upset these other teams and stop them getting the bracket play or win that quarterfinals. There's a very real world now where even though these names are all considered not elite teams, they all could do that. How about Legacy, Team Liquid, Na'Vi? Everyone will listen. These aren't teams that are going to win the major, but they could win the right quarterfinal or the right 2-2 game that knocks out one of the teams I just mentioned before. Obviously, teams like the G2s of the world are very susceptible to that. So I actually do think, the level's really good because if you even just go on HLTV rankings, some of the teams I just listed there, by the way, we're going right to the bottom of the top 20 almost. Like, this isn't like I just listed the top 10 to you. In fact, if anything, that shows how competitive CS is. There's teams that are way higher than some of the teams I just mentioned ranked that I didn't even reference, like the Astralises, the 3D Maxes. Like, no one really even knows what to expect from these teams. So I actually do think most majors have a bazillion upsets anyway. I think this one actually has the chance to have the most upsets ever. Like, the Swiss stage on this one could be absolutely mind-melting. Like, I actually hope, by the way, that the upsets that happen at this major will cause the final thing we all need in the format. Listen, I don't really need double elim for the players. I would just like it because I'm a fan from other games. As long as you're BO5 final, and as long as one day we have all BO3s and we don't have the two BO1s on one day, I think at that point I'd be fine with just holding it that forever for majors. That's enough for me. It's basically what we have at all the other tournaments, boys. I think it's mega as it is. We all enjoy watching all these tournaments every few weeks anyway. So I actually do. I'm with you. I think this major's in a really good spot, mate. Even though it might seem to other people like the simple storyline, the last major is easier. It's like, does Vitality win it all, basically? But I think actually this one has way more. It's what fans actually want. Remember, I always say this. It's not that experts hate upsets, and it's not that like plebs hate the elite teams that dominate. The problem I think plebs have is where it's only one team that dominates. That to them becomes too boring. They want some novelty. And the problem experts have is just when the upsets are random, when it's a match that will never be replicated. If it's like this, and you actually have, like we're saying, it's more like actually you say the matchup of the bracket that's going to decide who wins. If instead it's like, G2 shouldn't win, but you know what? If G2 plays FURIA first and then they play then suddenly Mouse to the fight. That's cool, though. That's interesting, especially because if you are an expert, by the way, one thing we all on this show love to do is break down the veto and look how styles will match up. That's half of the sport of the game. It's not really just watching the headshots. It's kind of like the framing, setting it up and seeing what type of archetypal teams are battling each other. So I'm with you. I think it's mega, mate. I'm actually really looking forward to this major. I think it's pretty sick. Okay. Maui, what is your good point? On brand, this one. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
it's the right time for it. It's the right time for it, bro. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, have to talk about my favorite Furia player. I mean, YEKINDAR making the comeback that he has into Tier 1 is just one of the most impressive things about this year. And it's my favorite part of the whole Furia story that's currently being written. That, I mean, you have all these other aspects like K-Serata and Yuri being as ready as they are after being on a team that was not a competitor for God knows how long, like 5 years now. You have Fallen, who's actually shown that he can be a very strong leader and captain after all of the time. Molodoy's Rookie of the Year case. But I honestly think that becoming a Tier 1 elite rifler again, and maybe I'm using elite a little too liberally there, but becoming an incredibly strong Tier 1 rifler again, and after 5-6 months away from the game is extremely impressive to me, because I've talked about before how I find that the peaks of riflers are so limited in time. Like Coldzera, 2 great years. After that, hardly a top 20 player. You can look at, Axile, that dude's just fallen off a complete cliff. And I find, like, on the flip side, making a comeback is probably even harder than just maintaining a peak, because there's so many aspects to being a strong rifler that I feel like people take for granted. And the same form that is so fleeting in maintaining a strong peak, I feel like is incredibly difficult to regain once you step away from the game. And there haven't been many riflers who have made serious comebacks in recent memory. Like, there's guys that have been kind of lying dormant that end up getting a resurgence, or they get on a better team. I'd say, like, namely Rez, for example, on Gamer Legion. I think people wrote him off. But in my eyes, he was just kind of lying dormant while playing Tier 1. There's people like Brolin, for example, kind of, funnily enough, also on NIP, but, when he first joined Maus. But these aren't really comebacks. These are guys that were actually competing at a high level, and then they just got onto a better situation. YEKINDAR actually was away from the game for 6 months on a Tier 1 level. And I feel like one of the only notable examples of that, probably recently, is Perfecto, but he's like completely shifted roles. I don't think he's the same player that he once was in the past. I mean, you could look at Simple. I think Simple is probably the best example, but like, if you're being compared to the GOAT, I feel like you're doing a pretty darn good job at making a comeback. So yeah, just a big shout out to YEKINDAR in general, because not only has he come back as an individual and been the best player on 2 maps in a 4-map series, grand finals against a top 3 team in the world, he's also secondary calling, and as Fallen even said to us on this podcast, he's sometimes becoming the full in-game leader for an entire half. To have that much knowledge and understanding of how to work through today's meta after being away, after being in and out of being an in-game leader while playing at a super high level, I just find that extraordinary. I don't think I think a lot of parts of Fury are being addressed, but I just wanted to take my good point to actually give YEKINDAR so many props for doing what he's doing now, which I frankly thought was pretty unthinkable.
Yeah. It also seems to, once again, show Liquid seem to have the reverse Midas touch, where everything they touch just turns to shit for some reason.
It's like another
now
NIP.
He's back to being good. Yeah, like I don't know why that's the case, but yeah, he's been great. One of the things that is most impressive to me since he's been on FURIA is, considering his play style, I would expect him to have way more really, really bad maps, because you look at, I always think of someone like a Tessus or something, or someone like that who has to take a lot of risks. Normally, they're going to have a few maps where they just really struggle and their feel for the game is completely wrong. I just rarely see that from YEKINDAR. Even in a game he's playing badly, he'll normally win you like quite a few openings that are just so valuable. And it always seemed like he should suit CS2 just because of how active he is. And I think when you watched Liquid, you could see he was still trying to make these moves, and you could see they just didn't know how to use it. So often it would just be him like doing some move by himself, and he'd sort of lose the fight, and they wouldn't really take advantage of it in any way. And obviously, he is just winning more of the fights on FURIA, partly because the team, I think, is setting him up better. But also, I think they are making the most of the space that he creates. And it also probably helps a lot that he has to be, the 3rd or 4th best player on this team. Like, him and Yuri are in that sort of region. So it's kind of the perfect spot for him to be in as this sort of X-Factor player. And yeah, like the confidence is just so clear now. Like, I literally just see him swing through smoke sometimes, and so few players can do that, and he has that ability. So yeah, like definitely massive props to him for turning it around. And it always felt like he should be good at CS2. So I'm glad we're getting to see it.
No, I like I'll take some of the points you said at the end there. First of all, I agree. He was one of those players that once you played the first 3 months of CS2, you're like, this guy should easily be. Basically, there's so many players, but they're all old, semi-retired or washed ones. Like, I think of CS2 and I think, bro, if you could teleport, like, from 10 years ago, Config, Fur, Electronic, they'd tear this game up. They'd be fucking loving it. They'd be basically the exertions of the day. Like, they wouldn't be dog, but they'd be one step below, won't they? And we'd all love seeing them get MVPs and carry. Well, YEKINDAR's in that mix, but the difference was, in theory, he shouldn't have been washed. Like, the bizarre thing about him is, this is why, on the one hand, I won't give him the full credit everyone else is, which is this. You know, when Launders does the meme thing, people have to understand, I joked about Kassad playing a character. Launders literally does play a character on Twitter. Like, you have to understand, if I was to, like, challenge him on certain, like, silly meme tweets he does, he would instantly back down and go, I was just joking without fucking around. So when he does that thing of, like, YEKINDAR, your time on Team Liquid does not count. It does. You know why? Because it was all self-inflicted. Right, remember, he's the reason why Elige wasn't on Team Liquid again until recently. Like, he's part of the reason why, and because it basically became him and Twist's team. And then 2, he made himself the IGL. No one did that, by the way. That's something he wanted to do. He inflicted that, which I think killed his game for a whole year, and Liquid to some degree. And then secondly, people are going to forget this. He was basically like Twist's right-hand man when they did the mutiny against Cadian, and therefore he then made himself be under the IGL of Twist, so it wasn't a good IGL. So thanks to him, he played under 2 not very good IGLs, in my opinion. One of them was him. So in that scenario, Launders, that all does count, mate, because he made all that happen. And I can tell you that when you do it to Nip, when you go, your time on Nip doesn't count, that's funny, because it's like, fuck the Nip org, right? If you're the Team Liquid org, fuck them for what? Listening to these players and do what they wanted. What? Fuck them for listening to YEKINDAR and Twist and giving them what they told them, not only they wanted, but would be good for the game. Like, mate, give me a break. So anyway, the point is, once you passed all of that, I agree on the time off the game as well. That's one thing actually that people probably were too unfair on. They just acted like he left Team Liquid and the very next day was playing in FURIA. Like, no, he had quite a lot of time out of the game. Remember, there was all those rumours because he was just playing like mixed games that he might end up with like Jame again or something. They'd be playing like tier 2 online CS right now. Like, that's how far down his career had gone. And unfortunately, because almost the entire time in CS2, he was kind of whack. Well, if you notice, one area that we do divide CS2 and CSGO is I've noticed if you're someone, I think Cadian's in this position right now, if you've actually never been good in CS2, we no longer give you that. Yeah, but it wasn't that long ago. He was your top player. CSGO feels like a million years ago now, guys. We're like over 2 years in. So at this point, if he hadn't have had this run in FURIA, we wouldn't even be talking about this guy on this show. Like, he'd just be some like tier 2 online merchant, or at best, by the way, he'd have needed like some Ash type figure to resurrect him in the Gamer Legion. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be some OG. He'd be an OG. That's the joke. He'd be an OG player or Paravision, or you pick whatever fucking random one of those teams where you can't even pronounce the name. It's in Russian. It'd be like in that team. So to get to this level is not only like incredible, it's so unexpected. But here's what I think's awesome. Bro, I'm not even just going to do the simple storyline of like he's resurrected his old style of player. I always make this point, Maui. I actually don't think YEKINDAR is technically as like skilled or relative to the top players or like impactful overall in terms of like just shoot people in the face as he was in VP. I think in VP in 2021, he really was like entering like top 10 type territory. He was. Yeah. The difference is he's a top 20 player now, but like Hawka said, there's two things here. One, he definitely has found the right team for him, though. The problem I think he had in VP and Liquid was the idea it was going to be him and someone else were the main star of the team. No, bro, if you actually have him as like the third star, I think it's the case for most playmaker aggressive rifles, by the way. That's the sweet spot, because then you actually can have a bad game, Hawka, but then, you know, the AWP and the Lurky rifle, which he's got in his team, they just carry the game then. But if you ever do have the big game like he had in these finals, the team's not going to lose, mate. Like, you don't, those players, that's why I always said the third star in an ideal world pushes you over the top. You get the great performance from the AWP and the other guy, but that's why it used to be the Flamies of the day back, you know. There'd always be that third player, Thorin, those Brazilian teams. He definitely plays that role mega, though, mate. Like, what I would say is this, I don't think he's like as skilled relative to the top as he was back in the day, but I think he's a more complete player. Like, I agree, he has added this dimension where I think in VP, sometimes he really did just run through a brick wall and just make it work. And in that team especially, that seemed cool because that was the ultimate contrast to Jame. In the new era, you can see he has taken some things from being an IGL. I'll just throw this out there, by the way, but I'll do it in an enigmatic way. It's all weird, that, isn't it, guys? So there's two eras in the history of Counter-Strike where Fallen is an elite IGL who might be the best in the world. There's the one where he had coldzera, who was the best player in the entire world, and he constantly said in interviews, actually, this guy's doing like 40% of the calling. So there's one time that Fallen was godlike at calling. Then, after years and years with no great secondary caller where nothing's happening, it's all going to shit, bizarrely, Fallen's found a guy, a secondary caller, that Fallen says is sometimes calling the maps. Ergo, Fallen is the best IGL. You know what, you guys, at this point, you're just arguing with yourselves. Go at it. Just have at it. And the joke is, as you saw in that episode, me and Fallen actually agree with each other. It's funny, we know each other, have actually talked about these topics. The difference is, he says it in a polite, funny way with that smile, that damn smile. I say it like Thorin, aka an arsehole, on the internet. And unsurprisingly, this isn't a problem. I've learned to accept this. Those two sets of information might be the same, but they're received differently. It's almost like how you say something is also part of how it's received, not just the information content. Shout out to me and all the other artists struggling with that for 30 plus years. But it's all right, I got there in the end. Only took me 40 plus years. I got there in the end, though. That's all that matters. Certain other people, maybe I referenced at the episode, they're still battling with that. They're still going, but I'm telling the truth. It's like, everyone sort of hates you, bro, so no one's listening. But anyway, we'll just leave that to the side. The last thing to say is this, and I do think this is a key point, is another thing I'll give him props for is, bro, he actually has, though, a bit like old school YEKINDAR, cranked it up to like, I always say, Maui, whenever the amount of entry attempts goes above 30%, you either are donk or that's almost like abusive from your team. It's like, it's not 2015. You don't really send one guy in first all the time. But that's actually low key what this guy's tried to make like a specialist role, and he's really fucking good at it. Like, that's why I know what you mean. He wouldn't really be the MVP for me of any of these finals on these things. But I'll tell you what, he would be the X factor. He's definitely if you go and look relative to who the third player would be on the other team, they're not doing this. They're not this. Like, again, go look at Falcons. The joke is, like, NiKo at this point is the third player. He's fucking bottom fragging, like, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. So he is actually a massive, impactful factor in them winning these tournaments. And I think, as I said earlier, the real beauty of FURIA is this. If you really do have Molodoi, who, listen, like I said on Twitter, the eye test is actually better than the stats, boys. His stats aren't on a CZWoo level, but the eye test looks mega. He's having crazy impact, and crucially so far is having no fear in these finals. And if you have Kesaratu, who, by the way, spoiler, he's been money the whole time. He hasn't even changed his game. It's like Blame F. They just play the same way for years, mate. It just depends on who the teammates are as to whether they win the game or they lose the game. He's still money in the back. Those are the two best players. But I'll tell you what, if this guy's your third best player, and then obviously the insane found money, is Yuri actually every now and then just forgets he's supposed to be the fourth best player and just goes, all right, I'll stop frag this map. Like, that's why actually, you know, the most underrated thing about FURIA, I was just joking to fuck with Brazilians because obviously they're trying to be patriotic of like, we all basically carried by a fucking Kazakhstani and a Latvian. Like, what are you talking shit for? But I'll give them this credit is if you're going to have like your fourth best player be Yuri, mate, the firepower is the most underrated thing about FURIA.
Crazy.
People keep talking like it's just fall. Because this is why narratives drag people away. They talk like it's just Fallen working his magic, or it's just Molodoi, he's the new fucking Monacy. No, what's crazy about FURIA, as all the stats will tell you, is they're going head to head with teams like Vitality and Falcons that are supposed to be impossibly Spirit, that's supposed to be impossibly stacked with skill, and they might even be better right now. They might actually be getting more fragging output from all the stars at once than those teams are. That's also why, by the way, you can also put them as the team to win the major. Like right now, they could actually just blow everyone out the fucking water. It's mega. No, I by the way, I agree. Another good point. YEKINDAR, good at the moment. It's actually very good. By the way, I know what you mean. I wouldn't say he's elite. I would just put it this way. He'll be a top 20 player if this continues. He would be in the top 20. He'd be like probably 18th or something. I think that would be fair.
He's on the cusp. He's on the cusp. I've thought about it myself. I think Yuri would have to be a little bit higher than him.
What if he has a good major, though? Would the major put him over the top?
That's the thing. After the grand finals of the Rivals event, I kind of have the inclination to put him higher than Yuri, but it's really close right now because Yuri's had a lot. Yuri kind of carried all the way up to the grand finals, actually.
Yeah, he was good.
I mean, they just take turns. That's what's awesome about that team right now is that they just all take turns being the best player. That's
why I'll give YEKINDAR the nod, though, as the third best, because I do think, though, because of the style that he has to play and what he has to do, I think that is fucking mad. Anyone who can do that, you always have my respect if you can be that like aggressive playmaker. Because I agree with Hawka, you're actually supposed to have bad games in tournaments when you do that. I always used to say when people used to tell me Config was overrated, it's like, he can't actually do Cold Zero shit because Cold Zero doesn't play that fucking role, mate. What do you want him to do? Like, he is for real running in and just engaging duels with people. He doesn't know where they are in the site and just having to instantly headshot them. Okay, so my good point is going to be really, really simple, boys. I actually think right now that we have, this is going to be controversial because this whole show for the last year has been all the problems of VRS. You know what? I actually think the circuit itself is in a really good spot. There's still the odd problem, but apparently ones that we're told will be resolved, as in next year we need those PGLs to have actual all the top teams at them, etc. Supposedly these things are being resolved over time, you know. But if you want to look at like one of the number one topics on this show, Hawka, was just VRS. Basically, it was like every problem with VR. I actually think that's ended up. It took a while, like a year plus. It's ended up in a pretty good spot. Like now, I think there's a logic that everyone sort of understands, and then more importantly, it seems like it's getting the right teams into the tournaments, mate. And it crucially has actually solved what I always thought was the number one reason I wanted a real global ranking system that Valve themselves signed off on, which is the tennis component, which is, I've always said this to people, if you actually make people play 3 or 4 rounds of like qualification for one tournament, even in tennis, like those legendary players every now and then would have just not made it to like a Grand Slam. They would have just lost to like a random person or some like old legendary player who's not ranked high in like that third match before they qualify. I've always thought, why in CS do we do that to ourselves? Like, and their best example ever would have been this first season this year. Remember, in the old format, Vitality still would have had to play an RMR. And if they really had, like, Zimu gets ill on a day, or they have a big fight before the wrong match, or they really just lose a close game, there's a world where they wouldn't even been at the major. And we'd have been watching the major and watching, like, OG play against fucking Legacy. And meanwhile, Vitality would be sat at home going, be great to be at the World Championship. Well, they won every other fucking match in every game. Like, so I'm going to say VRS, I actually am just going to put as instead of an ugly, like I'm going to say it's good. I actually think there's still a few wrinkles, but it took a while. I think it's broken through the threshold and it's actually proven that it works. Like, it generally does what we want it to do. And I do think if you followed CS for a long time, this is superior to what we used to have. Because the one last thing I'll mention is this. Even though they still call them invites to tournaments, it's actually, here's the thing. For the industry, it's actually a bad thing that they're not invites. Because if you don't know, they literally were just ESL chose who to invite. So if they wanted to, they really could just invite like FURIA when they're bad because you get all the viewership. That's good for ESL. The problem is, if you're like us and you're just an elitist that wants the best games, you want the best teams there. Like, you want like all the squads that are good, that have actually earned their spot. I think it does that. I don't know what you guys, but I think VRS is good. There you go. Controversial. Hawka.
Damn. Yeah. I still think, like, I guess the thing is, teams are still somewhat figuring out how to use it, which is part of the issues that have come through with it. Like, I think Heroic themselves basically said, we probably should have maybe just attended some of those small lands to get our VRS points up, because they didn't end up making it. And, like, I would like to see them there. Overall, though, I think I do generally agree with you. I especially kind of like that for the major, you get, like, the teams obviously advancing through so many rounds, because I kind of do want, we've just had a big tournament for a lot of these top teams. I want them to have like a bit of time leading up to the major to work on some things in practice. I don't want them to just get chucked straight into the first stage and then sort of be like figuring out stuff on the fly, figuring out, do we want to show everything at the early stage? I think it's super nice that for the most part, it is the very good teams that are straight through to that stage. So, because they've got now a couple of weeks where they can just practice.
By the way, that's even another thing I forgot, Hawka. The other thing that was so ropey about the RMR is the RMR decided what stage you went into. So also, by the way, famously, Zimu Vitality many times did fuck up and have to go in the first Swiss stage, even though they'd be like a top 5 team in the world. That's true. Yeah, they've also fixed that with VRS, mate. You get into the proper Swiss.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a big one for just like lowering the chance of those guys getting like randomly upset or just weirdness going on.
Yes.
And it puts them all on the same playing field as well, like the teams that are actually the top teams for the most part.
Yes.
So yeah, I think overall it's pretty good. I do think the whole like small lands thing, I guess, is the one thing that is going to be like talked about. In a weird way, I mean, it kind of helps these small lands. It gets teams to them. It gets eyeballs on them. So it's maybe not the worst thing, but yeah, like, I think Paravision were the ones, weren't they, that just went to all these random ass small lands, and sometimes it was like even just Russian lands where it's like I don't even know how likely it is that other teams can like get to.
That's the genius though, Hawka, because it's like James was like the numbers, Mason. What do they mean? He was just like calculating the equation of VRS and attended. He was like zigging when he should zig and zagging when he should zag. Because that's pointed out by Messi also. They barely made it in, but it's almost like they did calculate the whole thing. It was so cynically done, but they nailed it, mate. They went to exactly the right lands. As you're saying, it's almost like they even scouted out who else will be there, though, and like calculated the min-max. It was crazy. But it would fair play to them. Everyone should do that,
Yeah, that is the other thing. Hopefully, I think to some extent, the management of these teams need to like lock in and figure this stuff out. Like, if you're not, it's kind of on you. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's pretty good overall.
Yeah, by the way, you're also shit out of luck if you're the management. Because remember, Messi also was doing that out of the good of his heart because he wants to seem to be good. He works for 100 Thieves now, bitches. If you ain't in 100 Thieves, don't message him asking about VRS. Figure it out yourself. He needs that competitive advantage now, boys. Right, go on, Mo. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the system has worked out pretty well. I just kind of looked at the teams that are attending the major and thought to myself, okay, who do I feel like really deserves to be there versus who could be replaced? The first teams to jump out to me were kind of like the Huns and Rare Atom, but then honestly, if you're going to have spots in the Asia region, there's really no teams that are even better.
Sure.
It is just what it is. I mean, then I think Fluxo and Red Canids, but then that's kind of the same case of, okay, now that we're separating North America and South America, I think right now South America might slightly be weaker if you go down the line a little bit. For example, I don't think MIBR is attending, but then, or no, they are attending. Never mind, they just aren't in stage 3. Either way, I feel like the odd man out right now for me is probably just Paravision. I know Messi also did praise them about it, but they didn't beat a single top 20 team this entire season. Like, if you actually look at James last 6 months, he has 2 maps played versus top 20 teams. Like I don't think a team that plays 2 maps versus top 20 teams in an entire season has any right to be at the major.
By the way, that's the tweak that we need from Valve then, because remember, the key thing with the VRS is it has all these factors in, and one of them in theory should be like an elo system. So what they probably need to tweak there is maybe up like the quality of the opponent for the wins or whatever, or something like that, you know?
Yeah. I just don't really see... There's just no case for me, because you had orgs or teams like Heroic, even Gentlemates in VP, I thought had a better case getting into the major than Paravision did. I would have even... By
the way, even though VP had a lot of bad placings, they did actually get more... Put it out, I guarantee VP had way more wins over... Yeah, of course. They had the odd upsets. Yeah, sure.
I've seen
they
VP
missed like Pro League or something that screwed them. Was it that?
Yeah. They missed it because of visa issues.
Yep.
They missed Pro League because of visa issues. Yep. If they just got to play Pro League, and okay, if I say something wrong, then the VRS nerds are just going to get on my ass. So I'm not going to actually make an assumption here. I would assume that if they won something there, they would get in, but I don't know that for certain. So either way, I just think Paravision is the one team that kind of just... what is it? It's in James' nature, obviously, to just pull something off like that, just crunch the numbers to that degree. So
why does that make him sound like the Lord of Darkness, though? Like it's in his nature, his Machiavellian nature.
I mean, he broke economy. He broke economy.
True.
Of course, he breaks VRS next. It is just what.
No, what I appreciate is it. Like everyone else would just think like, to be better, I better like headshot better, or not win a clutch. But he's just crunching numbers. He's just got his spreadsheet out. Like, right, let's get some more of this shit. Let's min max. Okay. Right, okay, Maui. Yeah. That leads us into, speaking of things that are, I don't know, fashionable, something. There we go.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I got to say first and foremost that this show is sponsored by Fabletics. So that being said, if you guys didn't know, they're one of our newest sponsors on Snake and Banter, and they have an amazing deal. If you go to their website, fabletics.com/snake, where you can sign up to be a VIP and get an 80% off cut. And what is Fabletics, you may be asking? Well, it is some excellent apparel for working out. I feel like they've been around for quite some time now. I know that they started in the Southern California area. And honestly, from working out with their gear, I like the variety in the amount of clothes that they have. I've worn a few different t-shirts from them now and tank tops, and I'm actually going to be completely real. I've gotten really concerned with materials that my clothes are made out of.
Sure.
And I now think about cotton versus polyester and the blends between them.
Yeah.
And Fabletics actually have various percentages of cotton to polyester blends that if you're actually going to go on their website, you should actually probably think about.
Right.
And because sometimes it's more cotton, sometimes it's more polyester. I find that I like for workout apparel, kind of like an in-between amount. And Fabletics actually have that. They have something that's kind of in the like 70% cotton, 30% polyester range. And this is completely off script. I find that to be perfect because I want a little bit of stretch in my workout apparel, because if I'm lifting weights or something, and I want it to be breathable, which cotton is. So yeah, check out Fabletics, because I have already worn multiple pieces of apparel that they've sent over my way. I feel like you guys should check them out. So be sure to go to their website, fabletics.com/snake, and sign up as a VIP, because you get 80% off. You can cancel it as soon as you want. You could just sign up for 1 month. Just sign up for 1 month, get the discounts that using our code gets you, and then just dip out if you want to. Or if you like their products, stay signed up, get some more. So yeah, either way, your choice, everybody.
Yes. Also, as far as I know, they have hundreds of like different outlets you can choose from and stuff, and all the different types of loungewear, activewear, sportswear, all that jazz. Anyway, now let us go. That's right, people. Think of this is history right here. VRS was mentioned in the good section. So what's bad at the moment, Hawka? What is bad at the moment?
Yeah, I put it as my bad. I feel like this is almost, you know how Maui always does his self-serving points? This is almost me accidentally doing a serving point for Maui, because I feel like he works with Blast a lot. And my bad is that Blast don't have their own like super S-tier event like a Cologne. because I think they've been around for long enough that if they'd have had like the same event that they hosted at the same time every year, they could have had an event that has that level of prestige. And Cologne obviously has such history that it's always going to be up there. But I think overall, the circuit is so well run now, where we have the 2 majors at the end of each season. We have the Cologne, which counts above the rest of the tournaments for us. And then I guess the other one we would say is like Katowice, but that's always felt like the one to me where I'm like, it's not quite Cologne though. Like I don't put it on that level. And I would prefer if we had another tournament organizer that had an event like that instead of just ESL. And it's like you look at the way the Blast events are named. What was this? It was like Blast Rivals Season 2 2025.
Like that,
I'm like, I kind of just don't get anything from that. And it's a shame because the event was sick. Like the venue in Hong Kong was awesome. I think they're doing a lot of great stuff with their production. I love the over-the-camera shots you get in the replays afterwards where you actually see the player like swiping his mouse and you see his monitor and you see how quick the kills are. Those are done like really well. I think the stage setup was awesome at Hong Kong. Like I think PGL are also very good, don't get me wrong. But I think Blast, for me, their stadium events are so good. And I would love if they had an event that we all revere, like a Cologne, where we say this is their one event per year, where everyone kind of agrees this kind of counts for a little bit more than all the just normal S-tier events that we have. So it's almost still a good point because it's that Blast are really good, but it just kind of it's kind of a shame that because they've been running this circuit throughout where it's like this event leads into this event leads into this event. It doesn't feel like you get that one event that happens in the same place every year because you really tie it to the venue and to the place. That's the main thing, that if you can have that year after year, people are going to start getting excited. Sadly, I don't feel like Blast have that. And it's a shame because I want that competition.
Blast sort of missed the mark. Okay, well, disclaimer. Obviously, I work for Blast a lot.
Blast employee.
Yeah, essentially a Blast employee. I mean, I did everything with their whole circuit this year. I think I did everything with them last year. No, maybe I forgot when I actually had that little like 2 event streak where I missed their events or whatever. Either way, I'll just say Blast sort of missed the mark by not making the Open the spiritual successor to the fall finals, because to me, the crown jewel of the Blast calendar was the Blast fall finals in Copenhagen. It was always in the Royal Arena. It always had a packed crowd, very passionate fan base. Danish people do, in fact, know Counter-Strike to a very high level, so they would generally be a very strong audience, except if it's like Astralis, in which case they were just cheating blatantly, but like whatever. That happens with home crowds. That happens with home crowds, you know. No, but if I yeah, and I went through all of the tournaments this year on my stream about just kind of like, you know, ranking them, the importance and everything like that. And I felt like just considering, and I considered a lot of different aspects, you know, prestige of the tournament, the cultural continuity that it had throughout Counter-Strike's history, in which case Cologne, Katowice are very highly ranked. And yeah, with Blast, I feel like the tournament that had the most competitive format, had an arena playoffs, some kind of, I mean, I feel like but it doesn't really have that cultural continuity, was the Blast Open Lisbon event. And the reason I make the distinction between the Blast Open Lisbon event and the Blast Open London event is that Blast Open Lisbon had a studio group stage, whereas the London event actually switched to having an online group stage. And yeah, frankly put, I mean, I don't think anybody's a fan of that. I myself included. I'm not really a big fan of online group stages. I feel like it's a weird kind of way to sort of cheat the VRS system a little bit, or just however the tournaments can be run. And yeah, it's obviously a bit of a cost-saving measure. Thankfully, we did get, I would say, I think 5 of the 6 best teams at the event anyways that went to the London playoff, so it did pan out in the right way. So it didn't really bite that tournament as hard, but you just know that some team is going to like fluke their way through the online portion of it, then they're just going to bomb out in the playoffs next year, and then you're going to say, how the hell did they even get here? But either way, yeah, I think Blast, I think if I could control Blast myself, I would have made the second Blast Open event every year in Copenhagen, every single time, all the way through, studio into the like studio in the Blast studios in Copenhagen, and then the Royal Arena or whatever. I think they switched to a different venue actually for the last time they did a Copenhagen event, but either way, it would be a Copenhagen event, which would then just be called Copenhagen. It's not that like Cologne has to be the Lanxess every time, or Katowice has to be in the Spodek. I think the name because Krakow, for example, is kind of like the successor to Katowice, but I think they're trying to make it carry the prestige to that event as like an ESL or an IEM Poland instead, in air quotes, because it's not officially called that. So I feel like, yeah, if they continue that with the Blast Open being in Copenhagen, I think people would have regarded it similarly to the fall finals of the past. And that's going to be just kind of like a gap in the continuity of what the fall finals meant to the Blast circuit. Because I think that's my main point really right there. It's just like that's what I would have done personally. I think it would have actually connected the years of past where it was Blast Premier now switching to this new format.
By the way, I do agree with the central point. It's also like very much within my wheelhouse. If people want to know how I came up with that concept of the prestige events that I eventually like concretized into a video and said it's basically just the majors plus Katowice and Cologne, it's because this is basically, if people don't know what we all did in CS 1.6, in 1.6 there were no official majors. Technically the first CPL was because they just like Valve allowed them to call it like the World Championship or whatever. So the joke Heaton always made was he's still technically the reigning champion of CS 1.6 or whatever, like because they never had another one. But all the other ones that we called majors, World Cyber Games, ESWC, CPL, etc., later on IEM World Finals, etc., no one ever sat down and agreed that's the major. In fact, technically there were no majors if you want to use Valve logic. So what happened was within the community the same thing happened. I just noticed that like top players, teams, because there's another thing, do people want to attend the events? Like no one would skip a prestige event, mate. People will skip another event that has a lot of prize money or good if they're just not right time. So what I realised was essentially in a colloquial sense, we could all tell these were the majors. And I wasn't even the one in 1.6 who came up with that term. People just started calling those the majors, and we would just call them majors, and then we call the other ones just normal events, basically. So I always thought in CSGO it made logical sense to make Katowice and Cologne have that status, because not only did they originally take place as majors, but later on the format and everything got leveled up so much. I just think they were the best events in CS. I still think they are to this day. So I'm with you. Considering Blast is a very good tournament organizer. Like if you think ESL's the best, Blast isn't even second. They're like 1B at this point in time. Like, sure, maybe they don't do as big, expansive fields at their events. They don't have like the giant plane into the 60. Yeah, sure, that's true. But also, if you look at everything else, though, like all around, they're a mega event organizer. Like the broadcast is excellent. They hire very good people. The venues are all very good. They're never like skimming on that. Always seems like they sell out enough of the tickets that the crowd always looks good. By the way, they're also another event that does a good job with the crowd mics and things. A lot of the things, I think the Blast UI, this is my controversial opinion, I've always thought that was the best. I love that fucking Blast UI with the faces. I think it's fucking dope. I think it's so intuitive once you're used to it. So I think it's actually an underrated part. But I know what you mean. The one thing they are missing is they should have a prestige event. It's just logical. And the sad thing is they obviously tried to do it in past years, especially CSGO, with the World Finals, didn't they? They wanted that to be the end of their circuit. But the problem with that was it was one of those ones where it had certain scoffed elements, some of which are actually baked into the current circuit, where it's like, you're acting like it's sports and your year-end final can have everything from the back of the year. But if you know how CS works, mate, about a month is all it takes for a team to drop off a cliff in CS. So the problem would be if you get a team where it's like they were the shit 3 months ago, no one maybe wants to see that team. So I would say this. I actually do think you're all so close, and so is Blast, to actually making this a reality. Like, if anything, I'm not a big fan of Hong Kong's location because I live in Europe, so I don't want to watch matches that start at 7 in the morning or something like. But viewership aside, because I do think also it'll make the viewership take a little dip. Hong Kong, and now they've had I think they've had 2 events, wasn't it last year as well? They had in Hong Kong, wasn't the one that G2 won in Hong Kong?
Singapore.
Oh, whatever. Well, listen, I would pick one of those countries. I actually think that could be your spot. That could be your unique thing. Ours is in Asia. And those countries, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make a whole rant about this, but miss me on the idea all Asian countries are like equally good. Those 2 places, Hong Kong and Singapore, are way like cleaner, better like policing and stuff. They're mega places to go. Like if you've heard bad stories about other places, those are dope places to go for a holiday. So I also think that is important, by the way, if you're going to have a big prestige event, because in an ideal world, you want people to travel to it as fans. You want it to be like the major, like a location you want to go to because you want to experience. That's why Cologne's a great one too. Like it's just a very good, it's an easy place to get to, has all the modern accoutrements you want for an event, for a city, for a hosting place, etc. So I think it has it. I'm with you though, Maui. The other option, obviously, because the other established thing is that Royal Arena. I'm so I'd almost love to see an actual explanation from someone high up in Blast of why they did move away from that, because I don't get it. You're right, Maui. They had actually established that, even though technically it wasn't a prestige event, that was one of the most impressive live environments we had in Counter-Strike. And as you say, as long as it wasn't Astralis playing, it was banging. And it was the same time roughly every year. As you say, the Danish fans always did it, mate. They always went. Like, seemed like they always packed it out. I've been to that venue. It's a very good fucking stadium. It's really modern, has all the aspects. It also is one of those ones, by the way, that for CS is almost perfect. The thing about the Lanxess that's incredible is I don't know how they sell that out, bro. It's like 18,000 when you sell that out. Like, that's hard work to sell 18,000. I don't know off the top of my head, but I would guess Royal Arena is more like 10k or something. Bro, that looks like the sweet spot, because every time I ever saw it for a big fan, it looked like they sold it out to me. You know? And I think the image of looking sold out is better than having more people but not a full arena, if you know what I mean. The worst thing ever for me is that crowd shot where you just get the unlucky patch where it's like there's like 4 rows of seats with a big circle with no one there. Even though it's not a big deal. It's not like I'd go, this event sucks. That just brings like the vibe down of like, you had to be there, the FOMO, oh my God, this is incredible. That's the point. Kind of it's in Cologne. Everyone agrees it has that. That is something we all agree with. So, no, in general, I'm with you. And also, another thing you could potentially do is you could do something like maybe you're the first one that has a double elim tournament. Maybe that's how you make it unique. You make a format change that no one else has, and you be a bit bold. Because the one thing I would say at the end is this. The one area I do think Blast has fucked up in this sense is one, if you notice, we pointed out some of these things, they almost had it nailed. They just chose to go away for whatever reasons. But bigger than that, I do think Blast has shown over time, though, for whatever reason, a little bit of reticent to be daring and to gamble, though. They have seemed that they tried to play it very safe in a lot of regards, which is good. It means you're going to get 80 to 90% of what you want. But I think in this sense, if you want to distinguish yourself from ESL and the majors, I would try something like I say, like be bold, like make the double in playoffs or something, or maybe make the whole tournament just a double in bracket. Again, do something unique that no one else does, but make it epic. Because I agree, I would love to have like a 5th prestige event in this sense. I think that would be baller. And also, I do think people are finally realising, surely another fact that we've all had, because certain other events sometimes have the prize money, but not the teams. Like, the obvious example is, if you saw Legacy's finals, just go and look who they were playing, boys. That's not the same as FURIA winning those events. They were playing like 1.5 or tier 2 type tournaments. So the difference is we do need to make a distinction between events. Every event is not equal. And at this point in time, if we had 5, essentially like 5 Grand Slam type events, that would be fucking dope, because you could actually make that, instead of just the vague big events, which I still don't even fully know how legit that is at this point in time, because sometimes prize money skews it. If you instead took people's individual and team performance over 5 really big events that we all agree are prestige events, that would be a great metric for who the top players of the year are and the biggest moments. Like, that'll be an excellent filter to add. That could be a classic HLTV little addition there, like prestige events or something with Baller. And we're here. Okay. Right, Maui, what is your bad point?
Oh, self-serving.
Yeah.
Incredibly self-serving, this bad point. It's self-serving for me in a normal fashion, but given the fact that I'm working the major, I'm actually speaking on behalf of everybody that is affected by this. So, bad point being that given the recent news regarding the sponsorship of the StarLadder Berlin or Budapest major, that is, and oh yeah, disclaimer, I am working the event, so I am hired by StarLadder. So this is me, I'd say just being as honest and blunt as possible about this, is that the sponsorship that they got for Rollbit is apparently banned from being sponsored by certain channels, I guess, on Twitch.
Okay.
So essentially, I haven't really gone into the weeds regarding all of these details, but given the TLDRs that I've seen on Twitter from sources that I trust regarding these kind of issues, you cannot co-stream the major on Twitch or YouTube, and you can only co-stream it on Kick.
Yes, I saw something similar.
And so, you know, I'm working it, so this isn't going to really affect me because until the playoffs, which I'm not working, I don't really care. You know, I shouldn't really care, but I do think that there is actually something lost when people like One Pixel are not allowed to co-stream the major, or really just any type of streamer or co-streamer. And I think that before getting into some of the details about what's lost, I think that given that we have a slightly older fan base for Snake and Banter, I feel like a lot of people aren't really sold on the appeal of co-streamers necessarily. And so I would just kind of give it to you as simply as this. This is my own... I haven't seen anybody describe it like this, but I would just say that co-streamers are just like adding a topping to ice cream, which you already like. Like, you're not really gonna watch too much stuff just because of a topping on an ice cream. You're not you're not gonna eat an ice cream you wouldn't like, but it's just that you get to change it slightly. Like, for example, say you like classic CS players, you put Olaf Meister on the screen. I've seen a little bit of his co-streams in the past. He's kind of like Sprinkles, you know? It's just like, it just looks nice to have that guy there because he's going to like lightly react to what's going on. I'm not getting the most crazy amounts of insight to Olaf Meister being there, but it's nice to hear what his reaction is immediately to what's going on, just like it is to have Sprinkles on my favorite type of ice cream. But some people who I think are a little bit more thorough, I would probably consider myself in this vein, but maybe like an One Pixel type of person. Like, they consistently contribute, and that's more like having a chocolate syrup. You know, it's like it changes the flavor pretty drastically. You know, it's clearly apparent that it's there. And it's not like any of these co-streamers really make or break a stream. It's just sometimes nice to have a little bit of a flavor. Like, sometimes, for example, when I'm watching an event that I'm not working or co-streaming, I'll watch back some of what's happening in it, but then I'll actually say, oh, I wonder what One Pixel felt about this moment in the tournament, and I'll actually go back to watch his, or Flom, and I'll watch back what their reaction was to this crazy moment where Liquid choked around, because I know Flom really cares about that. So it's nice to get the secondary perspective and not make sure that, you know, it's nice to just see people react to these kinds of things in general. But all in all, from what I've gathered regarding co-streams, is the data is still emerging on this topic. It seems like there's not as much overlap as people would think regarding how many people would have just turned off the One Pixel stream and just put on the main stream. Like, sometimes people just are fans of One Pixel and they aren't actually fans of the main broadcast. And so you do miss that audience who would then be consuming Counter-Strike esports, as instead, if One Pixel during the event decides that he doesn't want to try to go through some crazy co-streaming method, he's just going to do something else. And you're going to miss the 40,000 people that are just on his stream all the time. Yes, he gets more viewers for when the event is on, and those kind of that boost in viewership that he gets would likely just go back to the mainstream, but he still has a core audience that he's going to retain doing whatever it is that he's doing. So I just think that this is a bit of an missed opportunity. I feel like, given especially that we now have a BO5 Grand Finals, this was a major where you could definitely see ES charts at the end of the event saying that we peaked at this crazy amount of viewership. Yes. And if One Pixel can't do it, I don't see us breaking that number, even if it goes to map 5. I just feel like he is now essential to boosting the metrics of Counter-Strike esports. As people don't, and I'm sure people don't want to admit that to themselves. You know, they think that it's self-sustaining enough, and it is. Don't get me wrong, like, it's still going to have great viewership, but it's just that breaking records is part of the progress of an esport, and the upwards trajectory that we've consistently seen from Counter-Strike. As Counter-Strike, by the way, if people aren't really familiar about the wide, you know, breadth of all esports, like, Counter-Strike's the only esport that's just consistently growing, whereas other esports, in terms of viewership, even League, is slowly declining or very much so stagnating. So now we're probably going to see, for the first time in a while, a major just get less viewers than the previous major. Like, it's very hard to imagine that it's going to actually going to break what Austin did. So yeah, that's my piece on just the fact that there's no co-streamers on Twitch for the upcoming major.
Yeah, I haven't fully looked into this, but like, from what I've seen people say, it sounds like StarLadder got some sort of agreement where they are allowed to put this sponsor on Twitch and YouTube, but then somehow no one else is allowed to co-stream this sponsor that's banned on Twitch and YouTube, which I don't understand how that's possible. Surely, if it's allowed for StarLadder, you got to allow it for the people co-streaming. So it seems like some weird, like, I don't know if it's intentional from StarLadder, but it ends up being this weird, like, workaround where, yeah, people aren't going to be able to co-stream on Twitch and YouTube because of the sponsor, which kind of screws everything. Also, the video I watched about this got taken down from YouTube. I don't know if that's because they mentioned the sponsor.
That's too good. That's too Orwellian. Come on.
Yeah, literally. I was like, okay, sick. Great. I was trying to look at it again today, and I was like, no, can't do that anymore. Sweet. Yeah, it is a shame. It's also, there's something you get from... It's something you can't really like prove in numbers as easily, but there is something you definitely get from having streamers react and having clips of that like go around everywhere. Like, I've genuinely watched very little Valorant esports. I saw some of the clips of like Pixel and Boaster memeing back and forth and like him calling him out and stuff, you know? Like, it really does, in ways you don't expect, open things up, especially if you can get co-streamers from outside of the game entirely. But yeah, like Maui said, for the exact reason that most people watching this podcast probably don't watch Earn a Pixel, those are viewers that are Earn a Pixel's viewers that probably wouldn't watch just a normal major stream, right? It goes the other way. So yeah, it really is a shame. I think that it's just going to miss out like more than you would think. I think when you realize like going into it, it's just a shame, and the whole thing just seems like very strange that somehow this sponsor is being allowed on StarLadder's stream. That's the part that seems so confusing to me. Like they seem to have gone to Twitch directly to get this permission. It just seems odd.
I'll start with that last part because I actually have what is actually quite a relevant point, especially we're all YouTubers, but we're not giant YouTubers with the bazillion views every month. One thing that's really frustrating, I can tell you as a content creator, is this exact topic, but reframed, which goes like this. There are literally sponsors, anyone who's a YouTuber will have seen the emails recently, there are literally sponsors none of the people in this call could put onto their YouTube channel. If you even mentioned them, like said them out loud, or you put a description link to them, you would literally get your video demonetized, or you'd get outright a copyright strike, or maybe even your channel taken down if you did a body strike. But I can tell you, and this isn't an exaggeration or like an assumption, this is literally factual, those same sponsors could literally sponsor the biggest TOs in Counter-Strike, and they could have VODs that have hundreds of thousands of views, and that VOD will never get taken down, and that company will never be punished. And so there's literally a two-tier system as to how they're dealing with these issues. And unfortunately, I have to say, as someone who's known people in people like Twitch and YouTube, I can tell you, I think it's a very cynical line that they're drawing, and it basically goes like this, but you'll see how this expand out to the point about the specific core streams for this major. The question I think these big platforms ask themselves goes like this, obviously not in this wording, but this is the gist of it. They ask, is the person I'm dealing with and making a judgment on my partner? Now, a partner would be someone who's like, a core business partner with you. They're going to bring value to you and do something maybe you don't, and you collectively you're going to... When that scenario, you're willing to make compromises. The other thing, are you a partner or are you a parasite? If you're just some guy where it's mainly you that'll benefit, they won't get that much. They'll get a few thousand extra views, nothing that big. I think if they view you as the parasite, they don't give a fuck about. They'll give you the harsh, like fucking steel fist they'll rule with, but they'll give the lightest touch ever to an ESL or some giant TO that has the same exact sponsorship. So I think the problem here is this. I think that question is what people running majors like this need to ask themselves about the core streamers. Do you actually view them as a parasite? Do you think like, well, they're just cannibalizing my viewership, but then they're getting their sponsors? Because that's another issue about this one. You can't have certain other sponsors of your own on your core stream, which is how people obviously fund their own businesses sometimes. So the question, or are they actually a partner? Are they actually helping, as Maui points out, raise the overall collective viewership? Essentially, do you, the TO, and this was never the case back in the day, but it is now, do you actually need the core streamer? Because I can give you a very quick example that I think will make this case for me from other games, because I follow multiple esports games. First of all, as pointed out by Hawka, a bunch of people who never watch Valorant have watched some Valorant for Valorant Champions because of Order Pixel, right? That's not a unique phenomenon, mate. First of all, that is relevant in CS, because imagine if, I don't think he will for this one, but imagine if Ori Pixel himself was like, actually, I'm not going to bother doing this major, I'm only going to do Valorant. Now, luckily, we're okay because Valorant Champions happened, but there are times, I can't remember if it was earlier this year or last year, there was times when Valorant was at the same exact time as a CS tournament, I believe. What if that happened and Ori Pixel streamed the Valorant tournament because they gave him the core streaming rights instead of the CS tournament? I'm sorry, I agree with Maui. I don't think all those same viewers would just go and tune into the mainstream. Some of those are Ori Pixel fans before they are CS fans. And I can tell you that the other reason I think this works is because I've seen two other examples in other games. One is also in Valorant, the giant Spanish streamer Ibai, who's involved with the organization Movistar Koi. They actually got their VCT spot taken away from them because they said that in the agreement, Ibai had agreed he would stream a certain amount, and he basically just like sent one of his like minion people in his group to do the stream, not him. And so because it wasn't him, it didn't get the same viewership. If you read between the lines there, that's Riot Games themselves basically saying we needed this guy to turn his stream on. Because if you don't know, the Ibai guy, by the way, in the Spanish-speaking world is so big, he now sometimes doesn't even do League of Legends and does like boxing matches that are like having enormous, and he probably makes millions doing that, bro. So In Valorant, I can tell you it's true. And also in League of Legends, there was a scandal this year in League of Legends for EWC, where they had a League of Legends tournament, not like Riot sanctioned, but they're allowed to have the tournament there, because Cadrel, it turned out behind the scenes, was getting paid like $100,000 a day to co-stream the event. Now, do you think they were paying him that because he's a parasite? No, they were paying him that because, again, they know that there are people who only watch Cadrel stream League of Legends. And if he had chosen, because he would have boycotted it otherwise, because here's the scandal, he'd made stupid comments in the past about the idea that you shouldn't work with them and, they're horrible to gay people and stuff. So if his viewers were like him and they just watched whatever he did, I don't know, stream a League of Legends solo queue game or something, you would actually have not put them back into the pool of people watching the League of Legends esports stream. You'd have essentially the quick version is they don't cannibalize the stream, in my opinion, especially not the big core streamers. They do add, and whether you like it or not, because I know what Maui means. The real problem with OnlyPixel is this: he's not even trying to be like a super professional. I'm an esports. This is a sportcaster. He's doing actually something halfway between real and watching the game, and almost like what that Babam guy used to do back in the day, where he was doing all silly voices and funny. He's an entertainer, basically. Like, here's the reason why I'm not a fan of OnlyPixel, because I view him as like a children's entertainer, and I am, despite opinions in the industry, not a child, I would hope, at this point in time. So it's just not my cup of tea, it's not my tempo. I prefer a bit more nerdy. I actually do like people who waste my time going into all the strat. I am like that. The weird thing is, I know that like that exists, but I think most people do want like a fun, essentially what they like about him doing that is that's like watching the UFC with Joe Rogan. You're not just watching it for a sport. You feel like you know that guy, and it's another group in your watch party, as it were. And essentially, it's a watch party where you don't talk. That's what an old Pixel stream is. And so if you enjoy his personality, it adds more than just the event. You're not just watching. So I do think you make a very good point there. And I do think also it's also another youth divide. The Zoomers and the Gen Z do seem to prefer watching with their influencer, their streamer, rather than just the main viewership. Like, we're all thinking it's like old sports and they want to just watch the main TV broadcast. No, they do want that. I mean, by the way, as I just hinted at, they even want that for real sports. They want Formula One and NBA and that. Like, if you don't know, I think Snoop Dogg or something used to like stream fucking NBA on like Twitch, and for real be like saying all like cuss words about the players when they missed a shot. Like, people want to watch their things with these like personalities they're into. Listen, you can get into a whole dystopian Black Mirror thing of is that good, but the point is it exists, it's here. And so I would bring it all the way back, because I agree. Think about the first point we made on this show, boys. This has the chance to be the most exciting major in years. So the idea that it's not, and it's a super exciting major with a BO5 final, mate, that has everything written on it of like, this should break records. Maybe the only one that it wouldn't break is like that Stockholm one, where it was after COVID and everyone in the universe watched it. But the reason why the BO5 one's the bigger point that people are missing. The way you get insane viewership is this. You need to have a BO5 where it goes to map 4, but map 3 was a gigabanger. And now it's 2-1 to someone, and everyone on the internet is just talking about this game. And everyone's like, oh my God, did you see the way Modesty closed out Mirage? And that is where, because that phenomenon, if people don't know, is how you get the biggest viewership even in sports. Like, supposedly in sports, the story goes that people do tune in at the end of these giant boxing matches where it's going epic, or a UFC fight where some crazy thing happening around. That's when everyone does do almost like, not literally on the phone, but on the internet, you see the buzz and you click and you join. We would have that for this major. So anyway, to bring it all back, look, I don't know Starladder's economic situation. I don't know what it would be like if they had to take this sponsor. Again, there's a lot of crackdown on who you can have as sponsors. I don't know what the situation with the platform. We've obviously had past tournaments where people made it exclusively off Twitch, etc., so they could get broadcast rights payments. So I understand that there's an industry aspect, but I'm with you. I agree that's just a bad point, because if you're someone who just cares about like the total viewership of the major, as many people watching as possible, and quite frankly, the cultural significance and impact of CS, I do think this is a slight negative. I think it's got some issues with it. And I hope in the future it can be ironed out, or they can find a good compromise. Because I even though, as I say, I am in the torn position that I don't want to watch OnlyPixel, but I want him to exist and to other people to be allowed to watch him. That's about the closest I come to liberalism, Hawka. Yeah. I will allow you to watch OnlyPixel stream. Right, okay then, boys. Here is my bad point. And I'm actually surprised someone else didn't think of this one, but it's been weighing on my mind now. Bro, it is Falcons whenever they are either in the final or a really big high-pressure playoff match. Because this team, this is why I can always tell who just hates Falcons for reasons outside of the server. Like the whole, like, but the 10 million, or, but, well, you didn't win last year. Hey, but Sonic said in an interview 2 years ago. Like, the reason I can tell who those people are is because, bro, you're not watching the games. right up until the minute they either reach the final or a massive high-profile semi-final against an opponent that can really beat them, this team doesn't just do well, they destroy everyone! They actually just fucking smash everyone. They even have all the things everyone laughed at. Like, they're here's the thing people keep telling me. People keep telling me NiKo sucks. It's like, bro, that's actually one-offs that he sucks. He sucks in matches. He'll still have tournaments where he's like a 1.2 rating player or 1.5. So they have games where their 3 stars turn up and they just pile driver motherfuckers in the ground. Even, by the way, top teams. At this point, they've beaten almost everyone except FURIA, basically. So you have this team that looks so close to winning. But at this point in time, this is why, by the way, I even bet on FURIA in that final. Because, brother, if they are playing against a team that can close the game, this reminds me of Mouse Sports. You bet your house against this fucking Falcons team. And also, here's another thing. Along similar lines, if you are Mauisnake, there's good news and bad news. Good news is this isn't 2013. HLTV is going to give you a ton of MVPs in the finals. You're going to get EVPs at every event. The bad news is this. You probably should just be winning all these events, mate. You should just have like 3-4 trophies in your back pocket. You could even win the fucking majors if it goes right. So I think my bad point is quite simple. Falcons in finals / close big series. What do you think, boys?
Yeah, I think this probably, it will overlap a little bit with my ugly, so I won't go too into it, but essentially, especially this last final, dude, if Kixan has a 1.30 rating, you cannot lose. You cannot lose. Like, that cannot happen. It cannot just be like one person here that's the problem. There's got to be something bigger. And it does seem like in any sort of game, there will just be one round where they just don't clear a spot for some weird reason.
Yep.
There always seems to be that one moment.
Oh, mate, as much as I make fun of people doing that meme with the radar, how many, you're giving them that fucking material, guys. Like, normal teams would have one of those. You have like one every tournament, like one of those radar screenshots. And they're real, Hawka. They actually are real. Like, every time you see that, you're like, that does look unlosable. And then they lost it, don't you? Like,
yeah. And it even ends up being like Mauisnake and Kixan were winning loads of clutches. Like, even Kixan was helping in the clutches. Yes. And so it's almost like sometimes when an in-game leader has a performance that good, you almost are like, oh, the game must have been bad. But this was like the opposite. It was like, I thought Kixan was a good in-game leader. I did not think he'd be a good fragger like this. No one thought that. So yeah, there's clearly like something bigger going on with that. It's interesting. I guess we'll see in the major how it ends up going. I don't know if you can really. It's kind of hard to like put your finger on because like we were saying, it can't just be one thing. I guess on the upside, Mauisnake is starting to really nail that like 1,000-yard stare holding the MVP up. Like he's
it's like people. It's like people meme. He really is like, listen, we only meant like your style of players, like simple. You're just following his exact career path, beat for beat, with Edward and Zeus in your team. You fuck. What are we doing?
Yeah. And the other problem is, as we were sort of saying, there are teams that are super clutch at the top. Like FURIA have just shown it. Vitality, I'm still saying, Vitality, if they get back to any sort of decent level, they will become a super clutch team again. I actually think the only issue they have is their team play is looking like kind of bad. Maybe some of their players are slightly out of shape. They could easily get back to that. So it makes it look especially bad when there are a couple of top teams that are really clutch and you are like the opposite. It makes it, the contrast is even worse for you. What we need is the Falcons Maus final. That's what we need.
Yeah, no, by the way, unironically you do, because then one person has to win. That's actually, by the way, that is a real phenomenon in sports and esports. That if you get, in StarCraft, they're called Kongs, the people who come second every time. The joke is, in history, a lot of the people who were the Kongs did win the title by just playing another Kong in the final. Because then the logic is, well, someone has to win. It's like the joke of, like, NiKo and Simple both had never won a major. That's why when they both met in that major final, I was like, well, at least we've taken care of that, boys. Like, you can't both fucking lose, so someone's getting it. Go on, Maui, what do you think?
Well, I would just say that I would hesitate to speak too much about it in case it encroaches on Hawka's ugly. Because I mean, is it about NiKo?
It's mainly about NiKo, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll try to stick away from that for this one then, because I mean, regarding the other aspects of Falcons, when they've gone deeper into tournaments, I feel like there was, like, for example, at Kyosuke's debut, I remember just like he was just the best player, and it was just like it was missing so much from everybody else. I'd say that Mauisnake kind of had he ramped up into the year a lot, so now we're getting the best form of him. And then I feel like some of what made Tessis an exciting player for the first 6 months of Falcons this year has sort of gone away too. I can't really speak on Kicksan at all. Like, I actually think he did everything he possibly could have in this finals. I don't even think, like, thinking about the calls pretty specifically, I don't remember too many aspects where he made seriously bad reads or bad calls. Like, I don't really watch too many Falcons games at the end and say to myself, Jesus, they were completely outcalled. Like, even the Melbourne Grand Finals, Kicksan made some insane calls that I still remember in terms of conditioning and then playing off of how Vitality was going to rotate or maybe stack a side or, play a strong side based off of the previous calls and what worked for Falcons. So I feel like the variance is actually there. I even think the game planning for Falcons throughout most of the Grand Finals was pretty good. I mean, I feel like they rightly identified how they should probably be attacking Fallen in a lot of the situations, and even how they should be attacking Vitality in the semifinals, just even some of the positions and how they were fighting against them. So I can't really even get mad at him. So I guess that just leads us to Hawka's ugly point.
We'll go there in a second, because first of all, boys, if you want to speak about having events in Asia, the most popular player in Asia, bizarrely, is NiKo. Like, everywhere I see it's like NiKo. Everyone's all like, fucking, like, people think those are just like astroturfed, like faked moment. No, like, that's real. Like, it's why they use them on all the posters. Same in Middle East for some bizarre reason. So normally I would say, obviously NiKo has crazy aura, but actually he has fuck all aura when he's in these finals at the moment, mate. He has negative aura. So what he needs is this. He needs to get aura frames, just like I've got them, because then what he'll be able to do is, think about it, I'm sure in those moments, this is how sports psychology works, boys. I'm Thorin Roble. Think about it. And I'm the third Roble. And basically, what they do is they teach you like how to like anchor to, a feeling of like feeling calm or you're in control. And that way, if you ever feel like you're losing control and things are getting away from you, you can like return to the right memory and the right feeling and the sensation, so that within your mind, you recreate an environment in which you can perform at your best. So basically, that's why an aura frames would be awesome for NiKo, because he could fill it with all his best memories. He could have all those blasts that weren't prestige events. Tell you what, fucking dominates those. If being the GOAT was about winning blast tournaments, and fucking this guy would be goated, he'd be way too good. He'd be just winning them all, wouldn't he? Blast merchant, some would say. Then you have all this, except in the finals from Falcons now, and then you have all the fucking teams he was in. You could have all the different IGLs. He could go, that guy was overrated. He was just finished, so I didn't even give him a chance. He could go, oh, shut up. He could even say that at the screen. He could see a picture of fucking Nexus. Shut up. Just remind it, because you can even play video. If you didn't know, you can have up to 30 seconds of video within, which actually sometimes catches me off, because I think I'm looking at an image and then it moves and I'm like, is this some AI demon number? What the fuck is that? Oh shit, that was a video. Yeah, I forgot. Oh fuck, I forgot to put a video in there. It's like the eyes are following me around the room. They've got it. By the way, on a serious note, it's actually super easy. This is actually one of the best products we have, in my opinion, as a sponsor, is Aura Frames, because they are super easy to set up. They have unlimited free photos and video. All you need is the app and Wi-Fi. You can preload photos before it ships, by the way. So if you're buying it for like your grandma or your girlfriend or someone, or somebody who's just not tech savvy or doesn't know about this sort of thing, you can set up all the photos that are in there, so they get it and it's like that. Then you can have remote access. So say they are someone who's like a boomer and doesn't know tech, as long as they have Wi-Fi and you set it up for them, you can load in your most recent photos. So that could just be what you're up to, so they feel part of your life. That could be if you have a kid or a family or something, they get to see how your life's going. They get to have experience with other members of their family. I think it's just a banger product in general. Also, at the moment, it comes with a gift box included, a premium gift box with no price tag comes with it. You can just upload straight from your phone. So, as you can see on the screen, Aura is the perfect holiday gift, and for a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames by using promo code S&B, all one word, at checkout. That's AURAframes.com, promo code S&B. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is their best of the year, so order now before it ends and support our show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Also, it is technically, as far as I know, mainly for US, UK, and Canada. But if you are in those regions, which are the Anglosphere, and speaking English at this point, they got the call, unless you're one of those people who's just listening to hear what I say about Fallen, then and hate on me on Twitter, in which case, Corral Ho, you just don't get one. You can just remember all the memories yourself of things I did or didn't say. Thank you, Aura Frames. Shout out to NiKo, who I imagine now we will get into. So, Hawka, what is it about NiKo that's ugly, would you say?
Yeah, I've said the community reaction to NiKo after this final, mainly just because I think I find it really frustrating when everyone just kind of takes everything else out of his career and just assumes like, oh, they just remember these little moments. They remember like Boston final. They remember that one nuke flank where he didn't hit the Deeg shot, which wasn't even like necessarily a super easy shot, by the way. But anyway, and this final, and it's just that I think before Donk came along, NiKo, compared to, I think, anyone else in their role, was clearly, like, so far above any other rifler. Like, I remember doing a draft, and I'm pretty sure I first picked NiKo because I was like, you know what? If you take Simple, I'll just take Zywoo. I'm fine with that. You know what? If you take Carrigan, I'll just take Glaive or someone. Yes. That's fine. Who am I getting next as a rifler who's had this longevity?
Yeah, fair.
Like, they all had maybe peaks, like coldzera, crazy peak, but then haven't had the longevity. So this idea that NiKo, like, for some reason the community is on this super, like, he's always a choker. This is always who he is. I would hate for this to become his, like, legacy. And I get that part of it you can say is him, and maybe he has had some finals and some big matches that he hasn't been as good at. But I also think, especially with this Falcons team, NiKo is getting to a point in his career where I'm not sure if we should be expecting him to be this superstar anymore. And there are guys like Kiyosuke who didn't really do that much for me in the final. Like he was just all right. I think he should be doing a bit better. And like I was saying earlier, when Kixan plays this well, it can't just be NiKo that's costing you the final. Like he did have a bad final and he did have a bad event. But in general, he has been having good events recently. And I also think people don't remember, like, Cologne 2023, I was just looking. He had a 1.35 rating for the tournament. This was with Hooksy. They won it. He had a 1.49 rating in the final. I think just because it was against an ENTS instead of, like, a bigger, more established team, people don't remember it. But I don't think it's necessarily, like, for certain that we should only remember this guy. Or even, like, that Dallas event that they won with Stewie. Like, he has to be doing something there, right? I know Monacy was great in that, but he clearly has to be, like, capable in these big moments. So I think I would say NiKo, throughout his career, he's probably been worse than you would expect in these big moments compared to how good he should be. But I also think you're holding that up to his super high standards. And yeah, you remember all these specific moments instead of just how good he is as a player overall. And I hope that's not how he's remembered. Maybe if he gets it over the line, it will change how he is remembered. Maybe if he finally gets it. But I think it's this sort of general idea that if you've never won a major or if you haven't won in these big moments, that people are just going to name you as a choker and that's it. And I think that's, like, so unfair to NiKo. And I also think part of the problem is Donk has come in and been so good that it's almost made us forget how unbelievable it was, how good NiKo was for so long as a rifler. Like, no one else could do it for as long as him. And yeah, it just feels a bit harsh to me. Like, I get that this final was bad, but it seems a bit over the top to me.
I just feel like NiKo's going to be remembered as a tragic hero more than anything else. I feel like it's difficult to imagine that he reclaims his status as the best rifler in the game. I just don't see Donk going anywhere. So I don't think that I think there's never going to be a year again where NiKo's the best rifler of the year. And so, because what sucks about it is that there have been years where he's the best rifler of the year and he doesn't win the major. So he's in this situation now where it kind of feels obvious to me that he has to. It's kind of my ugly point, actually, that feeds into that one. So I'll try to avoid the whole like next stage of it. I actually think the criticism is fair in a sense. I don't think that. I think that there's a sense of he has choked in situations because there have been multiple major and prestige tournament playoffs where he's against a lower ranked team, he does badly, and he is one of, not the sole reason, but he is one of the reasons that his team that was the favorite in the matchup does end up losing that matchup. I think the most notable ever is obviously E-League. But this one's pretty bad, but I wouldn't say this is. I had a nice list of all of the moments that I felt like were more appropriate. I feel like there were definitely times. Oh, like at Paris, for example, when he just was really bad versus Fnatic in the group stage. Yeah. I think, that was probably one of the biggest NiKo chokes.
That was a weird veto as well.
Yes, that was the Taz veto, famously.
The Taz veto. Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I've
Oh no,
already done
wait,
enough
was
blaming
that
of Taz in my
Taz?
life.
I had that wrong, maybe. Who was it? Well, whatever. Whoever did the Vico, maybe it was. I think it was before Taz. It was 2023, wasn't it? Didn't he join at the end of 2023?
Yeah, it was before.
Well,
It was
whoever
before
did
Taz.
it was a
before
fuck
Taz.
up. Who was the person? What was his name? What was that analyst guy called?
Swanee?
There you go. Yeah, he was the fucking person.
Swanee.
Then.
Yeah, the Swanee veto.
It was when it was it was. I've got it now. It was what was disputed was Huxley responsible for the veto? I think that was what.
Yeah.
And then people said it was Swanee or it was NiKo or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there was that one. I don't think he had the best time at the Copenhagen major, losing to Navi.
Oh, he had a bad time at that one, yeah.
And also losing to FaZe Clan at at Shanghai.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's been moments where he's had some. It's just that if you watch, if you only watch major playoffs, you might think that NiKo is. Why is this guy even getting on teams anymore?
Yeah.
It's one of the most unfortunate aspects about his career. Obviously, there's exceptions to that statement. Like he gets the team winning quarterfinals and semifinals is usually because NiKo did some extraordinary level of caring to get them there, even in the first place, or to get them past that stage. It's just I feel like this is just kind of what happens though when you have a fan base that just tunes in for the biggest games only. And unfortunately for NiKo, that's just seemingly where he's been doing some of his worst work. I mean, I can't really beat around it more than that. In truth, I made the take on Hot Take Point Made, and I really would test anybody to find a bigger argument for anybody else. Like, is there been anybody else in history that's been a bigger choker at majors? Because, but that's not how I want to be his, number one label. Like, I don't want that. Obviously, that shouldn't be his number one label. I think the greatest longevity in any rifler ever, probably the title goes to NiKo today. I'd say, you could take it for Forrest if you want to talk about all versions of Counter-Strike, but in terms of the modern era, I would say that it's got to be NiKo. So, I would prefer to prop him up before tearing him down, but that's just how fan bases are. That's just how... that's just how internet trolls are.
Yeah, I also quickly will say, I feel like he was actually really good in Stockholm. Just everyone remembers that one flank moment. But that final,
his numbers for the whole tournament.
The difference in the teams was insane. They had Jackson Amanek on that team, man. Come on now.
Yeah. No. And also, if you ever watch that final, Navi's plowing everyone, bro. They have three players that are better than everyone except NiKo, basically. So it really was one man against the world. Also, as a random aside, I even think, Hawka, I'm not even trolling. If you're listening, TOs, I know you do listen. If you want to make a fun segment, it's just, will they have the balls to do it, is my question. Here's what you really do if you want a fun segment. When you have all those pros on media day, set up that NiKo shot from Stockholm and just they all get one crack at it. They get one crack. And I want to see them all have one crack. Because I agree with you, Hawker. We're all pretending now. CS players are pretending the Deagle, when it's not at close range, hits every time. Am I the one on the crazy pills? The whole point is, the joke is, NiKo's career is the only one that ever made the Deagle look like it hits all the time, bro. I've never understood how he was that good with it. That's why it is almost like some Shakespearean tragedy that he, of all people, was the one that missed a really big fucking Deagle kill that could have won a game, or a map at least. A map for that one, we'll say, but whatever, it would have been significant. And I'm with you, right? I'll go through a bunch of the points you guys made. First of all, what Maui's sort of trying to get at there is my main problem with this. Right, people have to remember, I'm not even just a totally neutral observer. NiKo has literally been rude to me a bunch of times, especially in the first 3 to 4 years of his career, publicly about me, saying I am overrated or an idiot or he doesn't listen to me or whatever. In theory, I should be super motivated to hate on this guy. But the reason I can't hate on him as an overall player is because I love fucking Counter-Strike. So I would really ask, because I think this is the most hated on star player maybe ever in Counter-Strike, bro. And it is all just on that thing of it's not even just look, this year he does choke in a bunch of the fans, but it was mainly the majors and the prestige events in history, and the idea he doesn't win them. Right, here's the problem I have with that. I get that. We should bring that up as a topic. That should be a talking point. As we showed, you can't discuss how Falcons lost that final without mentioning NiKo. It's a pretty significant factor. In the same way as if you go on the other side, I don't think you could, even though I think Kirei Serato and Molodoy are better, I couldn't mention how FURIA won that final without mentioning YEKINDAR, could I? Because on the other side, he carried, didn't he? And did a fucking awesome job. So I get on the one hand why people point out that socks. But what to me suggests you're not actually a fan of CS, you're just a fan of people, almost like wrestling, is, bro, surely you do like his game overall, though. Like, he is fucking really sick to watch. And, by the way, it's one of the most aesthetic styles of play ever in esports. Fuck Counter-Strike. I've always said this. I wrote a whole fucking, like, Substack where I basically glaze him. Like, he doesn't even just do 4Ks, bro. He does 4Ks that are, like, art that should be in, like, a fucking museum or something. Like, where he just does, like, the perfect movement, and he's just, like, mind-gaming the opponent to peek him at the right time, and then he has the cleanest fucking technique on the one-taps, and the deagle headshots, and the spray shot. Oh, it's fucking unbelievable. So what I would say is this, I'll give you a sports analogy, because essentially I'll give you some psychology. I do think the real reason why people hate on him is because since it's a really obvious thing to say, like, but he's awesome, but he hasn't won the major, it's a way for anyone who's watching on the internet to feel superior to NiKo for a moment. Even though, by the way, you haven't won a major, but you get to feel like, he hasn't even won the major. The best correspondence I could give to this Hawka is my boy Ronaldo. Ronaldo has done not only everything you can do except win the World Cup, basically, also the Euros, but whatever, you get the point. He's basically done individually everything you could ever do. But like at this point in time, you'd be hard pressed to even find like 4 players you could put above him. But bro, if you go on the internet, all you will see is every fanboy like, but where's the World Cup? Where? And they will make it sound like he actually blows at football, dude. Like he wasn't even good. And that just becomes the one factor. Because you didn't win that tournament, you aren't good. I've seen this too many times in sports. So if people want an analogy, I'll give you an NBA analogy. I think the NBA equivalent is Karl Malone. If you know his game, it's unbelievable. I would put it this way, I would watch Karl Malone highlights and matches way more than I'd watch like LeBron or a bunch of people who've won the title. It's mega to watch, but because he didn't win the title, again, if you just want to feel superior or you want to point fingers and go, I look at the flaw, it's obvious and anyone can do it. So it's something that, it's not my problem that we bring it up. It should be brought up. But I agree with you guys. It can't be the defining factor.
Yeah.
It can't be, and it isn't. Like, by the way, there's more to tournaments than just the final. There's more to Counter-Strike, than just the majors. The major might be the most important, but we actually, like, let's be real, there's only 2 majors a year at most. A solid, like, 80% of playing CS isn't even about the majors. Like, that's why, even though I sort of joked that he's a blast merchant, I'll tell you what, if you do put him at one of those blast tournaments that isn't a major with the same pressure, and when you take the pressure off, he's better than most of the people. And I'll even add to Maui's point, if you want to see that this guy still on some level has it, I do think this year's been one of his worst years, although, by the way, check the numbers, they're still pretty good. Like, there's a lot of players, like, essentially, his numbers aren't that far off, like, the Molodoys of the world, but you're all telling me the best in the world right now. But if you want to go last year, there was a period after the player break when they got snacks. Bro, I actually think he had like a month where he was just the best player in CS. He actually was just cooking again. Like, he was right back to his foot. I don't know if it's because he was half IGLing because he came out of that fucking Dallas we're talking about. Also, there's the other reason why this is now an ugly topic, but we'll get to that in a minute, is this whole thing of like, it looks like he's setting up for if he keeps failing in Falcons and he doesn't get over the line, he doesn't win. They've already, the whole media campaign of everyone around him is they're just waiting for him to say, I become IGL. Like, it feels like that's the next career step, isn't it? And by the way, I don't want that yet. I still watch him play some of these games. I agree with you. Maybe not this tournament, but if you go even like the past tournaments, bro, there are quarters and semis. He is smurfing on people, and he's still mega. So I do think that's a bummer. I do think in Falcons, I understand why he gets hated on more there. First and foremost, let's be real. People know it's his team. He would have joined them in 2023. I've told this before, so I'll just say it out loud now. I've heard in 2024, he'd literally already signed the contract with Falcons when he was still in G2 and before it was ever made public. And so that's why they knew that entire second season he's gone. The question was just, does he drag Mauisnake with him or not? That's why the whole thing became bizarrely in interviews like, we could keep NiKo, but we're going to let him. It's like, you weren't let me saying it, bitch. He's already signed to go. So on that one, because essentially people view it as he had a similar scenario in G2, but now he forced his way out and he took Mauisnake with him. By the way, that probably hurts you right there. But G2 is a super popular team, but they have a lot of fans. Falcons don't have the same fans. So people now view it as you chose. That's like what I said about YEKINDAR Liquid. You chose to be in the situation, NiKo, with this weird lineup where you spent all the money. Then on top of it, you brought Mauisnake with you. And even though, by the way, here's a little dirty secret for you. Mauisnake fucking blows at most majors. He was great at that Copenhagen one, but he's been pretty bad otherwise. But because right now he carries all the games, now it's even viewed as NiKo's not just letting himself down, he's letting Mauisnake down, which is kind of accurate, by the way. Mauisnake would probably have won a bunch of trophies at these last few tournaments. Then add in Kiyosuke, came out of a dick about 5 minutes ago, and he doesn't even seem to have those problems. Or when he does, by the way, because I've seen some people going, where was Keisuke in the final? Bro, he's about 2 years old. He just started playing CS 7 seconds ago. Like, can I have a little bit of warm-up time, please? I don't know if I want to hurt everyone's feelings, but you know your beloved Molodoi? Go watch him against Payne at the Major in the playoffs, homie. Everyone's human. I always say this. The Matrix nailed it. Almost no one makes the first jump. That's why Donk making the first jump proves he was not in Neo. He made the Matrix, mate. I don't know how he did that. That doesn't even make sense to me to this day. And even he had a slight drop off at Copenhagen. And then lastly, if you just look at like the whole thing of, even though people donk on Sonic, the fact that Sonic has 5 majors in his back pocket makes it seem like it splashes back onto NiKo, because it's like, NiKo, mate, Zemu and Device didn't seem to have that many problems winning majors with this guy. At this point, you know, no one's going to blame him for not winning with some Pyres. You will be blamed if he plays with you the whole time and never gets close to a fucking major. So, no, I know what you mean. First of all, you notice there's real problems with NiKo, but I agree. The community perception, though, is way out of bounds, because they make it sound like this means he blows. In my opinion, you can only say NiKo sucks if the conversation is just who is the GOAT. If you want to do that, you can say this is a kill. If you want to just talk about CS, this guy is still a mega player. And by the way, one of those players that the cliche goes, you would pay for the price of admission to watch. Like, this is a fucking sick player to watch, bro. And low-key, because I love CS, I actually, even though he's been rude to me, I still pull for him to win the major. I want him to get that monkey off his back, you know, and then just go into the Pantheon in the same way as I think it's a bummer Guardian never got it done, you know. I wouldn't like people to say Guardian wasn't a good AWPer because he didn't win the major. Like, he was a fucking sick AWPer, boys.
Yeah, I just think it's the main thing is that, like, culturally, I would love if CS didn't just become the first thing you talk about is like how many majors you've won and trophies, because like you have the Ballon d'Or and the first thing they mention is like who won the World Cup, who won this. I don't care. I care who's the best player. I care who's a good player.
Agreed.
Like that's the main, I think, frustration where it's the only thing that gets brought up, you know.
Oh, and by the way, I actually have an answer for you, Maui, because sadly, one, it's a painful truth to me in my heart, but I don't lie to myself. And two, I've looked into this. Sadly, I'll tell you who I think the greatest player who was terrible at majors was, and I think it actually was Shox, unfortunately. If you ever watch, Shox had tons of time, 3 or 4 times in CS Pro where he was cooking everyone in the circuit, and then he just went to the major, and a bit like NiKo, it's rare they actually bomb. They don't have like red numbers most of the time, but they just don't carry. You know what I mean? They just have they have the game where they get the 15 kills and the other guy from the other team carries. And you just think, oh well. But then when it happens for like their whole career, it's sort of like this. You do have a problem at these majors, bro. Because if people don't know, the major Shox one was the one where he wasn't the star player. They would use him as like an entry player in the fucking LDLC team. When he was the man, sadly he didn't really get it done. But I agree with you. Here's the thing. My problem with this is, it's why also choking has to be redefined. NiKo seems to himself, like I said about the Falcons, to choke in the biggest matches in the majors. You put him in a normal tournament, he cooks everyone, bro. And by the way, here's what's weird. Normally choking is aligned with the notion you're not clutch. Mate, NiKo, one of the best clutch rifles ever to play CS. Like, his highlight package of clutch wins would be fucking bonkers. Remember, he almost won like clutch of the year last year, that one where he banged the table or whatever. Like, this guy's fucking sick. No, by the way, what I'm glad is we actually did at least counter the community narrative by just glazing fucking NiKo hardcore for like 15 minutes there, so it's all good. Right, Maui, it leads into your point.
Yeah. These are pretty closely related, so we'll see how much we have to go on this one. It's just that listening. So, I mean, you said, Thorin, that you're not really sure if you would tell NiKo to in-game lead today or anything like that. But I mean, there's one guy who thinks he would be more successful if he did, and it's his cousin. I mean, Hunter actually just said outright on Kassad's podcast that if NiKo were to have in-game led for some time now, he thinks he would already probably have a couple majors under his belt. So I think that if there's anybody who, I mean, and you can take this a couple different ways. They even talked about this on Kassad's podcast, which is, by the way, all in Serbian. You have to use translator or the captions to actually get what the messages are. They talked about it, and Hunter said that, he would have dropped an individual skill, and apparently, I guess NiKo told Hunter that NiKo thought he still had some individual work to do. Like, he wanted to get some more accolades, or he wanted to extend his career as an individual. But Hunter thinks that he would have had more trophies by now if he would have just switched to in-game leading. And yeah, I mean, we already talked about a lot of the aspects of NiKo in this one, but simply put, I'd say that the guy who has the most intimate knowledge of what NiKo thinks, how NiKo is as a teammate, and I'm not saying that Hunter is unequivocally going to know the best all the time over anybody else, but with the intimate knowledge that he does have of NiKo, to think that, it kind of just makes you wish he did. And so that's why I made it an ugly point, because yes, NiKo is, last year he was still an excellent player, like top 5 or something like that. But I mean, for Hunter to say that, it kind of makes you feel like it kind of just puts me at a crossroads where I'm just thinking to myself, would I have respected NiKo more for a career that is based around his individual accolades being as sharp as they are, but lacking in the silverware department, the trophies? Or would I have respected the decision to become an in-game leader and win the majors? And I personally think that I probably would have respected the switch by now a little bit more, especially if he was successful. There's a big what if there, obviously. But yeah, I think it's just kind of, after everything we said, I don't know how much more I need to elaborate on this, but it's just that, Hunter said this. I kind of feel like I have to believe it, because Hunter also said that he thinks that between him and NiKo, and even Nexa, that NiKo might even just be the best in-game leader. So it's just like this could have probably happened like 5 years ago, and by now you would imagine. And Hunter actually, well, this is probably a little bit of him being his relative, but also I kind of have reason to believe it too. Is that he believes that that NiKo would still be like a 1.1 rated player while being an in-game leader. And I forgot who pointed to it. Was it Svoich or Kassad? One of them pointed to the fact that when he was the in-game leader on FaZe, he still was putting up those kinds of numbers.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
So like, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that would point to NiKo having if he just switched by now, I think it would just be so good for him. But it's also, it is a what if, obviously. You don't know, like, if Donk would still have just tore through them regardless, or if they reached the grand finals of Shanghai. You never really know, but I just think that the conversation probably for me is opening up more about, do I respect a player more for having more trophies or being a better individual? Because I think when I first got into this space, I was kind of more of a ring counter. Like, I cared more about major trophies. But then I started to recognize, as you apply just more, nuance and thinking, delving into a person's career, you can only really control what's ahead of them for themselves. But I don't think many people have the option to become an in-game leader in the way that NiKo has proven he's completely capable of doing it. I think the Dallas final is actually probably the best recent example where he was putting up near MVP numbers. m0NESY obviously took it over him, but putting up great numbers while calling. So, like, there's already proof that he can do this in the last year, roughly. And so his lack or his unwillingness to switch by now, I feel like has actually held Falcons back from becoming the best possible team that they otherwise could have been.
Oh, I see. Right. At the end, that explains why it's the ugly then. Okay, right. Okay.
The thing is, I think I do trust, like, Kicksam pretty highly. I don't even know if I need it at this point. And this is the thing. You kind of, like, when you were making your argument there, you were like, yeah, I guess he was like top 5 last year. And I'm like, dude, yeah, he was like 4th in 2024, 2nd in 2023. I'm like, I don't know. I think Hunter, I can see why he would say this. I mean, it's kind of an easy thing to say, because how many trophies has NiKo won recently? Would he have won more? I mean, maybe. It's a kind of a low bar to clear, I guess. But I just think that if you're NiKo and you're this good as a rifler, I personally think, I just don't think you fuck with it until you fall off quite a lot. I think if you have, like, a year where you're actually just not that good, then I'm like, okay, I think it's worth switching. But I just don't think it's this given that he would be a 1.1 rated player and a really good in-game leader at the same time. And I think oftentimes we see, like, someone can in-game lead for a short time and everything can go well. And then over, like, 3 or 6 months, things start to, like, slow down and it doesn't quite go the same. And people start to anti-strat them and figure things out. And you have to develop your game further. I just think when you're this good, I just don't think there's any reason to, especially because NiKo is 28 and we're seeing players now, like, play until they're like 35, like even older maybe, and you can just be this, like, not great fragger as an in-game leader. So I just think that's always there for him, because the longevity of careers just seems way longer than we ever thought was possible. And I guess like, yeah, he's not been like as good in the big moments, but I think like if I think of NiKo as a player, I think he'd want to believe like if he'd have switched a few years ago and not had some of these finals, he would be thinking to himself, like, what if I did have that final where I played really well and I finally proved I could do it? I think that what if would always be way bigger to me than the what if of what if I became an in-game leader. I think you get all this playing out of the way. And maybe this major, he grinds hard for these 2 weeks and he comes in and he's really good and it all pays off. And if that happens, how could you take that away from him? I'd much rather he have the chance for that than this switch, personally.
The problem is, to tie on the last thing you said there, the real issue, I think, is this, as to why he hasn't done it, is because I think he's actually right in the sense that there's still like more in the tank and he could still do things individually. By the way, you can even argue now he's in the perfect spot. Like, if Mauisnake's a super carry and if Kiyosuke gets any better, he might even have to be the best player to win all the tournaments. But I also think as well, like, the problem I think goes like this. I think no real all-time great IGL that can win majors ever had the option to go, actually, I could have stayed as an individual player and been the star too and carry that. They never had that option. So all I'll tell you is, if you know pro players, and you guys all know this from speaking to them and talking on podcasts and meeting in real life, everyone says that the reason why the all-time great IGLs don't just become coach, even though we all tell them to when they drop off, is because it's not as cool to be the coach and stand behind and then win, because it's like you helped them, but you weren't in the server. And I think it's the same thing with being the IGL. I think if you have no option to be the star player, and you can be that, well, it's a way to win still. But if you could be the guy winning the clutch that top frags the server, that's the MVP that wins them, that's still better though. Everyone's sort of seeking the ultimate experience, almost hedonically in this, hedonistically, I almost feel like. So in that sense, I don't totally blame NiKo, especially because, as you pointed out, bro, we're talking like he was only good 3 years ago. He was the number 4 player on HLTV last year. He has 7 times been top 5, including the last 5 years in a row, right? If you had that level of talent, and by the way, logically, it would be right to say this, based on the law of averages, if I went back in time 5 years ago, I should tell NiKo then, think about me in IGL, you're not going to be on top forever, mate. I would have been wrong. He is one of those aliens that just keeps going, mate. Like, even his down years that we're discussing right now would still get you in the top 20. You'd probably even be like 13th or something ridiculous, like, especially if you win the major. So, as a result, I can't blame people like that. Essentially, my logic always goes, when you're that much of an outlier, essentially, the rules don't apply to you by definition. Patterns don't apply to you. You're the one that can ignore it. And so, when everyone in your career told you, you're wrong, don't do it, but then you were right and you broke through, I get why the 1000th time you don't go, actually, maybe I'll listen to you. You go, no, I believe in myself, I can do it. So unfortunately, I think NiKo, even though I don't think he's ever done this, it's like the famous Zeus tweet. It's like, I'm not giving up being a star player, motherfucker, till I win this major. Listen, if he wins the major, maybe the next day he becomes the IGL. Maybe then he passes the torch to Kiyosuke as the aggressive rifler, and he has his boy Mauisnake there, and everything's great. My other problem is this, and this is a point I want you guys to address after I talk about it, which goes like this. I'm excited at the idea of being IGL because, as pointed out, he's done it. He did it in G2 last year at Dallas. He did it in FaZe for a couple of years. By the way, here's an interesting detail for you. With the exception of the one last year, when he was in FaZe and he was the IGL, he was also the MVP of all the tournaments they won, by the way. So that even implies, that's why Hunter thinks that. Like, I saw an Epicenter in 2018 where he carried against Simple and fucking was the MVP while IGLing with Carrigan like in the cock chair on the side, like, hey, can I keep playing, guys? Before they kicked him out the team completely. So he's done it. He's won those blasts in 2019 doing the same thing. Now, look, here's my problem. I don't agree with Hunter in that sense. I know he's done it a few times, but here's why I don't agree with Hunter. Because I have a theory about fragging IGLs, and I said it to Maui on the show a million times about both Cadian and Heroic, and Jamin and Cadian in Heroic and Jamin VP. My question always goes like this. You're almost never the best at both of them, mate. So which is it? Are you actually like not that good a fragger, but you can do a bit better than others, and you're a great IGL? Or are you like way better than other people at fragging, but you're not actually that great at IGL? Because I do think the brain power can only go one place. You can't totally divide it 50-50 and keep it at the same level. You're splitting your tasks. So my problem is this, boys. It's not that I actually do believe sort of what Hunter says. It might be possible he could still be an IGL and get the 1.1 ring. Although I will point out, every star player who changed to IGL said that either publicly or privately. Everyone. Sharks, fucking, they all believed that, by the way. Twists. That's why I always used to say about Twists, yeah, the reason your numbers are great, mate, is you're not actually that good at IGLing. Like, you're not diverting the brain power, the dilithium crystals to the engine and shields thruster. You're just fucking using them as normal dilithium crystals, you bastard. You're just fragging and then going, what do you guys do? Oh shit, I'm the IGL. So my problem, and this is what I want to see what you two think on this. I also don't believe, I think Hunter's right on one thing, he would frag, but here's where I have a controversial opinion. I don't think NiKo's IGLing style would actually be awesome. Like, I think it would be decent, but one of the things I worry about, if you look at every team he's ever played in, they all have this loose style with these international rosters where he's awesome, but they have these same fatal flaws. And I'm sorry, that makes me wonder if NiKo's style, unfortunately, is too intuitive. And when he tells you, like, hey, let's split onto A now, in his brain, that's like all of the factors and things he's remembering, but I don't know if he can communicate that. So I think one of the problems is, I think his style works with his cousin Hunter, Monacy, one of the greatest players of all. I think if you have super sick players, they can make it work. But what I would worry about, and this is where I think the great IGLs make hay, boys, is what do you do with like the supportive element or the fifth player or the guy who struggles or an AWP who's not like it's how they implement those players I always marvel at. Like, they get everything out of those guys too. I don't know that NiKo's IGLing style would do that. I feel like he'd do a similar style to what you've seen already. What do you guys think on that? Do you have a different take?
I was going to let Maui go, but you got anything?
I mean, I think there's a possibility. I mean, while you were saying it, what was kind of rattling through my head is that maybe, I mean, I think NiKo can be the alien that does it. I know it's kind of crazy, but I just think I think it's of anybody that's even been close. I think he has the most potential to be the guy where, yeah, no, I think the simple, or to give credence to that idea more so though, it would probably be B- calling, but still A- gameplay.
Okay,
I think that's where I'd see him at. I think it's completely possible that he still puts up extremely serviceable numbers as an individual. While maybe, he's not going to be. I think right now the best calling is. I mean, this year it's been between basically Vitality under Apex and Furia with, Fallen primary, but getting a lot of help. I don't think he's going to reach those heights on a regular basis in terms of the calling, but I think he could outcall Madger, I guess that's not the most, the biggest.
You went for a bit of an easy one, that one. I know.
Yeah, I think that's good enough, though.
True,
I mean, what I'm saying is, I think that can win tournaments. I think he can win. I think he could definitely win tournaments while being of an extremely serviceable caller. Like, he would be in my B tier as the caller.
Also, by the way, here's the thing.
An A- tier rifler.
Respect to Hunter, he's allowed to say NiKo would be better than him. But if you're an Exa, you're just watching that like that 50 Cent gif, like, fuck me, what did I do? Like, I was trying. Like, why is he catching strays too? I know, like.
Okay, just so it's clear, I skimmed the podcast like really fast after I saw that this was out and everything, and I don't think, actually, now that I'm looking back at it, I'm not sure if Hunter said 1.10, that number, or it might have been somebody else on the show, but Hunter did say...
Pretty sure there was another interview elsewhere not that long ago, in the last few months, where he said if NiKo switches, he will instantly become the best IGL in the world. Hunter said that in some other...
Okay.
Might even been like James Back's podcast. I'm not sure. It was on some other podcast, so he definitely did say that.
I'm just saying the pure number. The pure number that I referenced earlier. I don't know if he said that, but it was more like a good player.
By the way, if you want an analogy, Maui, look, I know now, sadly, it'll sound like it's aged poorly because his numbers have tanked at the moment, but that is something in Season 1 that Apex was doing sometimes. Maybe not for the whole tournament, but he was having his whole series, bro, where he was just fragging way better than he should be able to as an IGL, so maybe it's possible. I know what you mean. If you had to give anyone a chance to do it, it would be NiKo. Yeah, it seems like he's the one who could maybe do it.
I mean, the thing is with NiKo is that I can imagine maybe the T-sides can use some work, even after he tries to get his, tries to do it for a year or so. I just don't see that on CT side he could be worse than, he wouldn't be worse than Apex, and he'd play the same positions as him. That's my, I think he would, and Apex still plays a lot of the active positions, like Connector on Mirage. I guess Flamesy and him switch that, but outside Rifler on Nuke or whatever. NiKo would just be better. I have full faith that NiKo would just stay. Even if he drops 20% in performance, I still think that's better than many of the people that play the positions that he plays today, which in turn would mean that you get a better anchor. I think in my head like this: if you got Bit for Kixan, NiKo in-game lead, yeah, maybe your T side calling is a little bit worse, which I imagine it would be. But I think your CT side gets such a nice boost. Maybe not. Maybe if you only looked at the grand finals of Hong Kong, you wouldn't believe that it would get worse with Kixan because he played amazingly there. But over the course of a season, it would get better with Bit than Kixan. I just imagine it to be such a stronger lineup. So that's kind of why I brought it up as an ugly point to begin with. It's just that when Hunter said that, and when I was skimming through that, and I was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, even Hunter believes it. You know, I didn't see that headline from 3 months ago or whatever. But yeah, no, I just, it perked my interest immensely, and I feel like this is it's not like I would go back and change NiKo's career because I'm happy with the way it's gone for him, but I mean to just hear it from a guy that's so intimate with him is just so shocking.
Maybe this is like somewhat biased coming in, but I feel like because NiKo has never liked Overpass, there's something about that makes me think, like, if you don't like Overpass, I'm a bit like, come on, man. Like,
it's like, do you even know tactics? I know exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, come on, man.
True.
So honestly, the map pool could be a big part of it too. Like, if you took an Overpass out, obviously that's
what he's waiting for. He's waiting for that to finally go out and he'll hop over. Right.
If it's cash, he could call easily.
Okay.
Oh my God, yeah, cash comes in straight away. Do it. Yeah, I mean, also, like, obviously with Hunter, he's come in and had that first really good tournament, and then G2 have kind of dipped a bit. So it's like, I don't know, I've seen that before. I get what you mean, where like the prospect of it is obviously super tantalizing. I just it's so hard because you just so rarely see it actually work out like that, and it's hard to think that NiKo would be. I mean, I guess if there was going to be anyone, it would be him. But like, I don't know if I see it enough. I think again, it's always more like the overall macro, like we're saying, like making sure everyone is going to be together at the right time. That I don't know if they necessarily have. But if there was an era of CS where you could rely just a little more on just fragging power, it seems like it is sort of now. So it's not impossible. But yeah, I'm always going to be on the side of, if you can still be a really good star player, do it for as long as you can. That's always been the safest option.
Listen, I still think he has been both the missing factor and can be the missing X factor to help them win. But he's not going to be, whether NiKo wins major or not, it's not going to fill your empty bellies. But this factor will, because did you know you can sign up with Wonderful Factor, who's sponsoring this podcast, and I'll actually relate all of their talking points to CS and NiKo. So obviously, if NiKo he used to be the main star player, IG, like Rifler. Now he's given some of those spots to Keisuke. He might become IGL. Well, you know what? If you want more variety, more to eat, if you want to eat more, then you can choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp. Did you know the Chinese nickname for NiKo is the shrimp? Look it up. That's real. That's straight fire back there. No one can do the reads like me. You all get that at no extra cost. It's come at great cost to his career, reputation, and mental health. Do you know NiKo needs to support the goals of Modesty and Keisuke now, not just himself? Well, good news is Factor can support your wellness goals. Enjoy even more GLP-1 friendly meals and new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. Also, in CS now, as we talked about, we go all the way around the world. We're in Hong Kong, we're in Brazil, well, not too often, but every now and then. We're over in Eastern Europe, we're in Romania, we're even in the UK sometimes, USA. Well, you can savor global flavours for the first time. Try an Asian-inspired meal, just like the FURIA players did with NiKo in that final, with bold flavours influenced by China, shout out Jamyong, Thailand, don't know anyone from Thailand, and more. Know plenty of more. Then, obviously, it's all about, like, you know, the quality of the building materials you put in there. That nutrition is what makes you healthy, isn't it? Well, good news. For more choices with better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers didn't say NiKo was a choker. They said Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference, no matter what NiKo does, aka your routine. So, thank you to Factor. Eat smart at factormeals.com/snake50off and use code snake50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code snake50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purpose. By the way, I just always wanted to be the guy who did that voice thing there. I don't know why it sounds cool. There's something about it. It's like hypnotic, you know. Anyway, the last point of the show, I've actually made this a wide open one because I think it's a fun one we can have a talk with. I'm going to pick as my ugly point. Not good, not bad. My ugly point is the second season of Vitality this year. Because, boys, this is another example of where when you're expected to be the best, if you aren't the best, you're treated like the worst. Guys, in the second season, they've always made the semi-finals of every single, no matter how bad Zero played or if Rops was off or every time it's minimum semis. They also had a period in there where they made 3 finals in a row and they managed to only get 1 trophy, and you can argue it was the worst trophy of the lot. Like the EPL just isn't considered that big. It's obviously the one without the big hype arena. And the reason why this blows, in my opinion, is because one, I think it's actually made people undervalue Vitality now. Like people act, bro, like you're an idiot if you say they think they can win the major. It's like, I mean, FURIA hasn't even done it yet. Like they like 1B option to win the major. And then also to me, those 3 finals are nuts because they smashed Falcons. They barely lost to G2. They could have won that 3-1. And even though they got 3-0 by FURIA, that is one of the closest 3-0s you will ever see. Like, you go and watch those first 2 maps back and tell me you don't think that, like, Vitality's winning those games. Like, they really could have exited this second season. First of all, with, like, again, they could potentially win everything. But actually, without even me doing some crazy, like, change a million factors, bro, they could be going into the major with 3 titles. They could be, like, the number 1 favourite. So, the idea that you're that consistent and that your level only drops, like, a certain amount, but it means that you go into the major now legitimately not actually even the favourite. You'd have to give it to FURIA. And also, you only got 1 little baby trophy. Like, I think this is fucking insane. This has to be ugly. What do you think, Hawka? What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I actually think it's a testament to how good Vitality are that they, I think, have been playing actually kind of badly. And you will hear Apex after these games, he says stuff like, oh yeah, I told a player to do this and he just didn't listen to me and it messed up the call completely. And they're all amongst themselves saying like, oh, we're making all these mistakes and they're still nearly winning tournaments, man. Like I think it is actually so impressive. And I think you can see when they're playing that there are moments where like the team play is just weirdly off and we're not used to it. And yeah, it's just really impressive that they're still so good, to me at least. I also do think that because of these sorts of issues, I've been saying that I actually think ZywOo's taken a little more initiative. It seems like he's getting a little more involved because he kind of realizes the team isn't playing as well as a team. So it's kind of nice that you have that. But on the other side, I remember when Rops was always on these like Maus teams that were just not that good and he's just not as comfortable. He can't have as much impact. I feel like we're kind of getting that where the team don't feel like as on the same page all the time. And it seems like that's really important for Rops to be at his best. And I don't think he's been as good lately. And it's kind of a shame almost that you have him as like, in theory, the second best player on the team because Rops doesn't have the same ability to just make things happen for himself. Sometimes he kind of has to be a slave to the system. And so it means that you can't have him just step up and completely carry all the time because those late round positions you're not always getting into. So yeah, I actually think in a weird way, it's a proof of how good Vitality are. I was saying earlier, I really hope they do win this major. And I think it's very realistic that it could happen because this should be remembered as the year of Vitality for the first half of the season. And it would suck if, because of all of these placements, people don't think of it like that. It'll be a super nice way to just wrap it up. I think whatever happens, that first season, to me, it counts as an era because it's just so dominant and it's for the whole season. For me, that's enough. But, you know, just to have no doubts that this is like their year and for it to be remembered like that, I would love for them to win the major. And yeah, I think you could make if you wanted to, you could make a strong argument they are still favorites just because FURIA haven't proven they can do it on the big stage. So Yeah, and I really just mainly hope that they can lock in this little practice time and show up at their best at the major. Because I think if they hit their peak, I still think they should be the best team.
By the way, also, miss me the people who were already trying to make that kiss. Like, maybe FURIA are the team of the year. Two of their trophies, Official Playground and Thunderpick World Champion. Shut the fuck up. Listen, I'll give you the credit for like Blast Rivals and fucking Chengdu. They're legit tournaments. If you win the major, yeah, that's a fucking cool stuff. The Vitality won everything, bro. They only failed to win Blast Bounty. Come on, Maury. What's your take on the Vitality angle?
I kind of, well, just to touch on what Hawka was saying about the era thing, I think it would be nice to wrap it up like that, just because I think it was Moses was the one holding out that Vitality never had an era, because it just wasn't.
Why is he the gatekeeper now? Let us live, Moses. Let us live.
Application.
No, I'm pretty sure he was the one that was like saying it. You know, it wasn't, because it was just. I think he wants the period of time. I forgot his argument on Talking Counter. He said it after the major, the Austin major, but you know, given that the only thing they won this season was ESL Pro League, it's kind of hard to argue we're still in their era, unless they, in my opinion, unless they win this upcoming major, because then you can kind of use the same LGSK connective tissue argument where we were somehow in their era, even though nothing really happened between those two majors. So I feel like then if you argue that's a major, you 100% have to then swing over to say that it was that we're still in a Vitality era. Because also I think the semifinal streak is something that's going maybe lightly underrated right now, because it's not the sexiest narrative that it's like 15 consecutive semifinals, or 14, either way. It's just an absurd amount. I don't even think Astralis' prime had this sort of streak. It's so wrapping it up with a bow and saying, you know, I guess a bookend or whatever would just be like that they win this major also, and the whole time it's like, the secret is we were always in their era the whole time.
They were still sort of the team to beat for the whole time. That's just true. Yeah.
No, every single tournament kind of felt like if they lost, then now it's wide open suddenly, because if they're going into every tournament, they're the favorite. They were the favorite for me for the Blast Rivals.
But I can tell you on the betting, they're always the favourite to make the final every time. In fact, they're the favourite almost every game, mate. Still, everyone bets on them. Everyone does.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like to explain the second half of their season, I feel like the only consistent issue that I've found or like consistently can point to is just the communication just doesn't seem as good. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I think individual form is something that's missing from them, but I think now if I'm really pointing the finger on anybody, I feel like Rops is macro-wise just not helping the team nearly as much as he was. And I think Apex is actually not even really lightly hinted at that. I think he's actually been quite obvious about it in post-game interviews that Robin was supposed to be here. Like, Robin was supposed to be there, or like Robin was selfishly kind of like doing his thing over there. And I feel like that's kind of like the negative aspect of Rops that at times I've gotten kind of angry about when criticizing him, is that, you know, sometimes he's just living in his own world. I feel like Rob sometimes is just there's probably like 5 rounds a game where I just feel like he's so locked into whatever his little micro objective is that he does not understand what is trying to be accomplished on the map. And that was something that I really thought went away, especially during when FaZe was really hitting their stride. And I even feel like I feel like now we're kind of, and especially during the Vitality era, I felt like he was entirely in sync with everything Apex wanted to accomplish. But now, there's times when I don't think Apex was able to as effectively mid-round, and I think he explained one of these where, on a post-game segment where something went wrong because Rops was supposed to stay in apartments, but then Mirage? Because on Mirage, Mirage. Yeah, where he decided to vacate his area and just kind of leave for no real reason. And I think those kind of moments are sort of what I very vividly remember towards his tail end with Maus, and kind of saw occasionally with FaZe, but usually FaZe found a way to work through it. But Vitality, they were so strong in the first half of the year because Rops was the escape valve. Like, he was always there in case they needed to mid-round to go somewhere else. But now if he's sees a duel that he doesn't like or he gets tagged early enough in the round, he'll choose self-preservation as opposed to fighting to the death or staying in a position. And I get it. He weighs his opportunities, he weighs his chances in a way that has gotten him to become a world elite, all-time great rifler. But I think sometimes he doesn't always seem to take into account the macro implications of, oh God, we don't have apartments control on Inferno and we want to go back to A. Well, we can't do that now because there's just too much shit to clear, or we have to run and then the other team can just rotate. So,
by the way, you notice how, though, this is actually a problem with players who are lurkers. The problem is, if you're an entry player, you just run in and get your head banged off and look like a dickhead. It's obvious you fucked up, but in this scenario, it's essentially the absence of making the right play that's the issue. So that will always be noticed by the fans. And that's why I can see why it's Apex calling out, mate. And by the way, he had some of these issues in FaZe before, Maui, when you've criticised him, for sure. It just goes through. I've always said, for me, I feel like he's someone who just trusts his feel 100%. And when it's amazing, he's unbelievable. He's right every time. But you can see he can have 3 months where he's wrong, mate.
Yeah. I mean, I think the funny phrase to characterize Rops now in these two teams is that he's a honeymoon merchant. It feels like maybe he's listening better in the beginning of all of these teams. Because at the beginning of FaZe, they go on to win the Grand Slam, win the Major. Same thing happens with Vitality, and then he kind of just starts to live in his own world. That's
Apex is like the sad wife who's like, you don't listen to me anymore, Rob.
and then Carrigan's in his DMs like, yeah, it's the same with me. After a while, he just, it gets boring. Does it get stale for him? And he starts looking elsewhere. Like, I can't keep him on the porch, can you? By the way, why are we so bad in CS? Everything has to be just an alter of a past meme, like honeymoon merchant. Like, but I fuck with it. It's so absurd. I like it. Okay, fair
enough. It's good. But beyond that, for Vitality, if you just had to ask me who's my favorite to win the Major, I think now with the mounting evidence, I'd have to say it's FURIA, but beyond that, I mean, second place is easily Vitality for me. It's neck and neck still. I have been forced to become a FURIA believer at this point, but with Vitality, it really is just the finest of margins that is making them a semifinals consistent team instead of a tournament winning team. Like, that's what I still believe it's just 5 to 10% downgrade from what we had earlier in the year, and some of the other teams have just leveled up.
Also, some of these matches, not all of them, like I think he was pretty good in, I think it was Chengdu or something. There's been a couple of finals also where if he just played slightly better, he just wins them the whole fucking match. Like, that's also why low key, even though I do think you should say the favourite is FURIA, I would probably still pick Vitality to win the Major Hawka, because the difference is Ziwu can just wake up any day he wants. Like in the Donk example I gave, and just win you the match, man. Just take the whole final.
Yeah, they're more proven in the big event playoffs. I also will say on Rops, I have a friend whose favorite player is Rops. I play with him sometimes.
If you does he do the same shit? Oh my god, come on.
Dude.
It sounds like a nightmare.
I watch him last alive on the other side of the map, and I'm like,
no.
It's like, bro, you aren't Rops. One, you aren't him, and two, we're not in a pro match. Please stop doing that. Like,
I know.
I mean, it's fine if he's your favorite player, but to try to emulate Rops has to probably be the most griefing type of play style to ever grace a pug. Like, just make your favorite player Zywoo. Just be everywhere you're supposed to be and just hit every shot, okay? That's my favorite teammate to have.
Yeah, my favorite guys. Imagine just joining a fucking random matchmaking game. Guys on the mic. My favorite player is Jim. Like, I'm out already. Like, I'm off.
I just feel like I'm just alt tabbing after I die every time. I'm not watching any of that shit.